Chapter 2693. Lin Sun took a deep breath, sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to meditate. In his mind, he quickly recalled all kinds of subtle experiences and details of the Gate of Exile. After a while, Lin Sun came to a conclusion. When the Gate of Exile opened, the laws of time and space intertwined, producing a terrifying devouring power. Lin Sun had no doubt that even the great ancestor of Zhu Xian could not withstand the devouring power of this level. As for the immortals, Lin Sun thought of the immortals he had seen and roughly judged that under the sudden attack, the immortals at the same level of longevity realm would also suffer. Unfortunately, Lin Sun had never fought with them, so it was difficult for him to make an accurate judgment. Behind the Gate of Exile was the abyss of nothingness. Those who were exiled would never be able to escape because it was a different time and space. However, Lin Sun had a doubt in his mind. If the abyss of nothingness was a real world, then why would this world have such a mysterious connection with the devouring abyss talent? There must be a great mystery in it. With my current strength, after using the Gate of Exile, I can only hold it for a breath of time, which means that I can't use this magic easily unless it's a critical moment. Lin Sun meditated while thinking. Just now, after using the Gate of Exile, he almost used up all his strength and felt like a lamp running out of oil. One had to know that his current cultivation could be said to be invincible in the extinction ancestor realm, and it was heaven-defying to the extreme. But after using the Gate of Exile, it only took a breath of time to consume about 90% of his strength. One could imagine how abnormal this magic was. If it was in a battle, once the enemy was not killed, his situation would become dangerous. But no matter what, after awakening the third stage of the talent, Lin Sun undoubtedly had one more taboo killer move. No. It should be 2 killer moves. In the Tai relic of the vast thousand battles domain, the talent of the Lord of Tongtian, Blade of Time, was sealed in the place of Lin Sun's heart. Now, with the awakening of Lin Sun's talent, the seal of the Blade of Time was also lifted, so Lin Sun first obtained the secret of this magic. The Blade of Time could reverse time, able to sever one's cultivation, similarly a taboo. In the last era, Wei Mingzi had been struck by the Heavenspan Lord, and his cultivation base had been severed. That was to say, Lin Sun had mastered both the Gate of Exile and the Blade of Time, which belonged to the third stage of the devouring abyss. In the awakening of talent power, Lin Sun had undoubtedly stepped onto a brand new level, a brand new realm, which was completely different from before. Several hours later, Lin Sun recovered his cultivation. After thinking for a while, he finally resisted the urge to try the power of the Blade of Time. This kind of forbidden divine ability consumed too much power. Now, after a month of meditation, Lin Sun not only awakened his talent, but also completely healed from his injuries and restored his strength to the peak. His cultivation had reached the peak of the early stage progenitor realm, and he had been reconstructed and reborn. His current battle prowess was completely different from a few years ago. Even if he encountered Zhong Lixiao, Qi Pejuan, or the other progenitors, he could easily kill them. He didn't need to take them seriously at all. In other words, a fight with the same realm could no longer attract Lin Sun's attention. What he truly feared and cared about were the existences at the immortal realm. Although this place is a first-class blessed land in the first heaven, it's a pity that it's not suitable for long-term cultivation, Lin Sun muttered. Over the past month, he didn't dare to fully absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. First, it would cause a huge commotion. Second, if he cultivated with all his might, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth contained in the Shinto mountains would be rapidly consumed. It might even affect the normal cultivation of all the cultivators in the Yin-Yang Academy. Most of the time, Lin Sun used eternal void source crystals and some divine medicines to temper his cultivation. However, the consumption was also extremely huge. After a long period of accumulation, The cultivation resources consumed could be said to be astonishing. For example, in this month, he had consumed nearly 20 million eternal void source crystals. No wonder those immortals are unwilling to come to the first heaven. The higher one's cultivation, the greater the cultivation resources needed. In the eyes of the Emperor realm, the first heaven is already a blessed land, but in the eyes of the immortals, it's probably unbearable. Although Lin Sun was now the progenitor of Ju Sun Emperor, his cultivation foundation was so strong that when he cultivated, he also felt that if he stayed in the first heaven, it would be very difficult for his cultivation to go further. While thinking, Lin Sun stood up. His figure was like a divine rainbow, rushing into the sky, flying higher and higher. 10,000 zhang, 200,000 zhang, 300,000 zhang. When he reached 70,000 zhang, Lin Sun began to feel the terrifying pressure of the world's rules. He had no choice but to operate his cultivation. As he flew higher and higher, the pressure of the rules became stronger and stronger. In the end, even with his cultivation, his speed was greatly suppressed. But all this was still within the scope of Lin Sun's endurance. When he reached 90,000 zhang, Lin Sun only felt that the scene in front of him suddenly changed. An endless starry sky emerged in his field of vision. Billions of stars twinkled, glowing with eternal brilliance. Looking down from here, the mountains, rivers, and earth were like thin lines, and even the vast and boundless Shinto mountain range was like a curved earthworm. Is that the star path? Lin Sun practically saw a strange scene at first glance. It was a mysterious path that lay across the starry sky of the universe, and it was formed from countless stars that flowed with brilliant divine radiance. From afar it looked like an endless path of stars. There were only two ways to enter a higher realm. One was to get the guidance of a person from the upper realm, and the other was to break through the barrier. Between the 9 heavens, there were boundary barriers. The domain star path was a relatively safe type of domain barrier. In the past, there were many outstanding people who had passed through the domain star path and arrived at higher realms. However, this was a very small number. For the vast majority of cultivators, let alone breaking through the star path, it was difficult to even step into the 90,000 zhang high altitude. For example, Lin Sun's cultivation was invincible in the Emperor Ancestor realm, but he still suffered great pressure all the way to the 90,000 zhang high altitude. It was conceivable that if it was any other Emperor Ancestor realm figure, it would be impossible to achieve this. According to the records in the world classics, there was no lack of danger on the star path. There were many strange and terrifying creatures on the long and winding road. In the past, even the Emperor Ancestors who tried to break through the star path had a slim chance of survival. Therefore, under normal circumstances, very few people would choose to do this. The reason why Niechingrong, Lung Qingxue, and other Emperor Ancestor level existences in the first heaven are willing to serve the immortal Emperor clans is that they hope that one day they can be guided by the immortal Emperor clans and achieve their goal of leaving the first heaven. Almost none of them considered breaking through the star path because it was too dangerous. After silently staring at the mysterious and dazzling star path for a while, Lin Sun turned around and returned. After arranging the matters in the first heaven, he would set off and leave. Yin and Yang Academy. You too, I have already planned to leave the first heaven. Lin Sun found Niechingrong and Ling Qingxue and went straight to the point. If you two are willing, you can leave with me. The death of Zhu Yin and the others will definitely attract the attention of the 3 immortal emperor clans. Even though Lin Sun had already thought of a reason for Niechingrong, it was just a reason after all. Those high and mighty immortal emperor clans have never been reasonable. If they vent their anger on Niechingrong and Ling Qingxue, it would definitely be an undeserved disaster. If Lin Sun stayed, he might be able to deal with it, but if he left, who could help Niechingrong and Ling Qingxue? Niechingrong and Ling Qingxue were very surprised and caught off guard. I plan to break through the star path. I might encounter some dangers on the way, but I'm confident that I can reach the second heaven. Lin Sun said. Can we really go with Brother Lin? Nie Qingrong couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun nodded. If you stay, you will definitely be questioned by the 3 immortal emperor clans. You might even suffer an undeserved disaster. If you are willing, I will definitely help you to leave the first heaven. I am willing. Leng Qingxue, who had been silent, blurted out, causing Lin Sun and Nie Qingrong to be stunned. Leng Qingxue's pretty face blushed. I am willing to go with Brother Lin. As long as I can leave the first heaven, I don't care even if I encounter danger. Nie Qingrong was also very tempted. She and Leng Qingxue were already alone. Even if they could survive the pursuit of the 3 immortal emperor clans, they might no longer be valued by them. This also meant that it would be almost impossible for them to go to higher heavens to cultivate in the future. But Lin Sun's proposal gave them hope again. Brother Lin, if we leave, what about Xiao Shi? Nie Qingrong asked. If she is willing, I will also take her with me. Lin Sun said. When he found Xiao Shi, this pure and lively girl was practicing martial art. Her graceful figure was bathed in the light of the sky, beautiful and dazzling. When Lin Sun proposed to take her away, Xiao Shi was also caught off guard. This was too sudden, causing her thoughts to be in a mess for a while. Unlike Lin Sun, her home is in the cloud shadow village of the first heaven. If she left with Lin Sun, she didn't know how long it would take for her to return. Don't make a decision in a hurry. I will take you back to the cloud shadow village again. At that time, you can give me an answer. Lin Sun also saw the dilemma in Xiao Shi's heart and couldn't help but comfort her. Xiao Shi nodded firmly. Chapter 2694. Cloud Shadow Village. After chatting with Grandpa Wu Chuan for a long time, little Shi walked back with red and swollen eyes and said in a low voice, Brother Daoyuan, I want to go with you. In the distance, Wu Chuan grinned and said, Little friend, you can take this girl to a higher heaven for cultivation. This is a blessing that she can't obtain even in 8 lifetimes. It's just that in the future, I can only trouble you to take care of this girl. Lin Sun patted little Shi's shoulder to comfort her, then smiled at Wu Chuan. Senior, rest assured. Grandpa, when I'm not here, you have to take care of yourself. You must wait for me to come back. Little Shi's voice was choked with emotion. Ha ha, then I'll be waiting. Wu Chuan laughed heroically. On the same day, Lin Sun took little Shi, Nie Qingrong, and Leng Qingxue to Qingming Mountain. On the same day, in the Yin and Yang Academy, a group of big shots from the Hong, Zhu, and He immortal emperor clans arrived, causing a sensation in the entire Yin and Yang Academy. It was also at this time that people discovered that Palace Master Nie Qingrong and Vice Palace Master Leng Qingxue had disappeared. This strange scene also made the big shots of the 3 immortal emperor clans frown. They felt that something was wrong. Let this old man deduce. In the Yin and Yang Great Hall, a black-robed old man said in a deep voice. Everyone couldn't help but look over. Zhu Qian, an immortal at the same lifespan realm, and a famous divine diviner in the 6th heaven. It is said that this person has a unique fate, and by relying on the innate power of his bloodline, he can deduce many incredible mysteries. This time, the Zhu family sent Zhu Qian to find out the reason for Zhu Hun's disappearance with his unique deduction ability. After all, Zhu Hun is an immortal. Such a strange disappearance in the first heaven caused a great sensation in the Zhu family. Buzz. Along with a wave of obscure and strange fluctuations, a black tortoiseshell with scorch marks floated in front of Zhu Qian. His expression was solemn, his hands forming a spell and his lips muttered an incantation. It was an extremely obscure and complicated incantation. The atmosphere in the hall was silent. It wasn't long before the dark tortoise shell fluctuated violently, and then an expanse of rippling light spread out. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, a blurry scene appeared. Although it was incomparably messy, people could still recognize that the person in the scene was Zhu Yin. He had obtained the Tao diagram related to the power of order from Nie Qing Rong's hands and left without a second thought. Immediately after, the scene changed. Zhu Yin's figure appeared in the depths of a barren mountain range. Withered Willow Mountain Range. Someone was surprised to recognize the place. This caused the great figures from the 3 immortal emperor clans to be startled. So it turned out that Zhu Yin had really gone to search for order energy. But in next to no time, the scene changed once more, and it revealed the scene of Zhu Hun perishing in the Eternal Fall Forbidden Area. However, the scene was extremely blurry and distorted, and it was soaked in thick blood. Moreover, in an instant, the scene disappeared without a trace. Everyone in the hall was in an uproar, and they were all shocked by this scene. Although they did not clearly see how Zhu Yin died, from the blurry and bloody scene, they could see that Zhu Yin did not die under the power of order, but at the hands of the enemy. Who was the enemy that could actually kill an undying being? Everyone was bewildered. As expected, he was harmed by someone. Zhu Qian kept the tortoise shell, his expression dark and terrifying. Tao brother, can you find out who the enemy is? Someone couldn't help but ask. Zhu Qian frowned and said, I can't. It's not that my divination ability isn't strong enough, but the enemy that killed my clan brother Zhu Yin has a unique fate that cannot be seen or deduced. Everyone was shocked. Could it be the mysterious person that killed Yu Qianheng and Yong Faidu? Someone frowned. It must be that person. Many people agreed. This was the only explanation that made sense. In my opinion, the disappearance of Nie Qing Rong and Leng Qing Shui is definitely related to this mysterious person. Perhaps it was because they sensed that something was amiss that they left early. Someone muttered. When was the last time you saw Nie Qing Rong? Zhu Qian's eyes were like lightning as he looked at the big figures of the Yin Yang Academy who were waiting to be interrogated. Reporting to Senior, it was half a month ago. I remember it very clearly. Someone hurriedly replied. Zhu Qian immediately frowned. So you're saying that they left half a month ago? This was undoubtedly bad news. Tao brother, can you deduce the cause of death for my He Yufang as well? A big figure of the He clan walked forward and asked respectfully. Do you want to bring his soul lamp? Zhu Qian asked. That person immediately took out a bronze lamp that had already been extinguished and passed it to Zhu Qian. Zhu Qian sized it up and nodded. Yes. Buzz. His body glowed as he stretched out his hand and struck an obscure seal into the bronze lamp. After that, he chanted an incantation, and the black tortoise shell floated up again, buzzing and glowing. It didn't take long for scenes to appear before his eyes. This time, it was extremely clear, and the scene in the scene was the Yin Yang Great Hall. In the scene, He Yufang's hair was disheveled as he begged for mercy in fear. Opposite him stood a tall figure, but it was extremely blurry, and it was impossible to make out anything. However, everyone could still see that Nie Qing Rong and Leng Qing Shui's figures were also in the scene. In next to no time, a strand of sword qi flashed, and He Yufang was killed on the spot before the scene vanished. On the other hand, the expressions of the big figures of the He clan were extremely livid. They finally dared to confirm that He Yufang had actually been killed as well. This matter really is related to Nie Qing Rong and Leng Qing Shui. Someone gritted his teeth and spoke fiercely. Doesn't this mean that my Hong clan's Hong Yinghe has suffered misfortune as well? The big figures of the Hong clan revealed furious expressions as well. So this slaughter occurred here. Then it's easy. At this moment, Zhu Qian revealed a trace of a cold smile as he waved his hand to disperse everyone, and then he himself stood at the center of the hall. At this moment, he circulated his eternal Tao to its limits, and his entire body was drowned by the blazing eternal laws. Vanishing shadow reappear. After a short while, he suddenly spoke with a Tao voice and his fingers moved. The scene before everyone's eyes blurred, and then numerous inconceivable scenes appeared in the Yin Yang Great Hall. If Lin Sun was here, he would definitely be able to see that these scenes were exactly the scenes when he killed Hong Yinghe and He Yufeng that day. And now, these scenes were once again reflected in the Yin-Yang Great Hall. The expressions of the people who witnessed all of this changed indeterminately, and they determined numerous details and the truth of the matter. But to their surprise and bewilderment, the tall figure that killed Hong Yinghe and He Yufeng had always seemed to be extremely blurry in these scenes, and it seemed as if it was concealed by some sort of mysterious and unfathomable force, causing them to be utterly unable to see his appearance clearly. This seemed extremely abnormal. "I don't believe that your fate is so hard." Suddenly, Zhu Qian roared with a terrible expression, and blue veins bulged on his forehead. He spat a mouthful of essence and blood towards the turtle shell floating in the void. Buzz! All of a sudden, the scenes became extremely clear, and Lin Sun's originally blurred figure also showed his true appearance. However, it was also in that moment that the pitch-black turtle shell exploded with a bang. Zhu Qian let out a painful cry as his figure staggered and fell to the ground. Fresh blood flowed out from his eyes, ears, nostrils, and lips. His whole body seemed to have suffered a terrible backfire. His body twitched, and his cultivation showed a scene of continuous decline. In just a few breaths, he seemed to have aged countless years. His long hair withered and fell, his body shriveled, and wrinkles appeared on his face. Even his qi was extremely weak. All the people present were shocked and silent. This was an immortal figure, a rather famous divine fortune-teller, but he suffered such a terrible backfire just because he wanted to infer and see through a person's true appearance. This shocked everyone and made them feel cold in their hearts. Some people with sharp eyes even judged that the cultivation of Zhu Qian, an immortal figure, was very likely to be abolished, and there was no possibility for him to recover. This was so terrible that it made people shudder with fear. At this time, Zhu Qian seemed to have gone mad, and he let out a heart-wrenching roar of resentment. "It's him! That damned evil creature Lin Sun from Fangtsuan Mountain!" In that instant just now, he had finally seen Lin Sun's true appearance, but at the same time, because of that instant, he had to pay the price of his immortal cultivation. The price was so great that it made him feel like he was about to collapse. He had only tried to infer the fate of a young emperor ancestor, but he had provoked such a forbidden and terrifying backfire. This was something he had never expected. If he had known this would happen, he would have done it even if he was beaten to death. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. "What? It's him?" The hall was in an uproar. It was not just the great people from Two Ways Academy who were dumbfounded. Even the great people from the immortal imperial clans had their expressions changed drastically, and they were filled with shock and anger. Lin Sun. In the current eternal true world, there was no one who did not know what sort of tyrannical and heaven-defying person his name represented. The bloody battle that had happened several years ago outside the ruins of the gods was still spreading in the eternal true world. Who would dare to forget it? However, no one had expected that after disappearing for several years, the heir of Fangtsuan Mountain who came from the ancient path of the galaxy would appear in the first heaven. "He is actually still alive," someone said with a trembling voice. Forget the great people from the immortal imperial clans from the sixth heaven, even the great people from the seventh and eighth heaven would not dare to underestimate this young man who had once stirred up endless bloodshed in the great thousand battles domain. The hall fell into a state of turmoil for a long time. Everyone had a premonition that after several years, Lin Sun's appearance would definitely cause a commotion in the entire eternal true world. At that time, countless gazes would be cast on the first heaven. If Lin Sun knew what had happened in the Two Ways Great Hall, he would probably rejoice that he had made the decision to leave early. Otherwise, this storm would not only implicate Nie Qingrong and Ling Qingxue, it would also pose a great threat to him. Chapter 2695. Above the 90,000 zhang Qingming. The star path was very long, cold, and vast. Walking on the star path, Lin soon felt his own insignificance. Compared with this vast starry sky, the worlds, big and small, were like a speck of dust. Lin Sun set off alone. Nie Qingrong, Leng Qingxue, and Xiao Shi were all placed in the abyssal sword cauldron. This treasure was like a vast world, able to accommodate mountains, rivers, seas, the sun, the moon, and the stars. All the treasures collected by him over the years were collected in it. Moreover, people like Luo Ling and Qi Lingyun had been suppressed in it all these years. Of course, there was also evil god Tishi, who had turned into a child, Dog Egg in Lin Sun's eyes. Dog Egg was just a child and had nothing to do with Tishi. When there was a chance in the future, he would arrange a good future for Dog Egg. Starlight flowed, dazzling and gorgeous. Walking on the star path, waves of terrifying domain rules surged, producing an extremely terrifying oppressive force. If it was an ordinary emperor, it would have been difficult to move an inch. But for Lin Sun, this oppressive force was not worthy of much attention. He took a step and was thousands of zhang away. His clothes fluttered in the wind, like a lonely wandering soul walking in the starry sky. In fact, there was indeed no life on this star path. Along the way, all he saw was cold and vast starry sky. 3 days later, in the starry sky, a large number of meteors burst out, like a violent river sweeping across, one of which brushed past the star path. At that moment, Lin Sun clearly felt the heat of the meteor, like a huge burning fireball, glowing with an incomparable dangerous aura. Clang! Inside the abyssal sword cauldron, the Tao sword whistled out, like lightning, tearing the sky and splitting the meteor. Amidst the rain of light, a huge figure suddenly rushed out from the meteor that was split open. It looked like a human, but its body was covered with colorful and twisted star veins, and its eyes were like 2 burning stars that were terrifying. Star Spirit Warrior. It was a strange and terrifying creature. It was rumored that in the past, all the experts who perished in the star path would have their shattered souls and willpower gathered by the laws of the star path and transformed into stars. After the accumulation and nurturing of time, these stars would give birth to a spirit body, which was the Star Spirit Warrior General. They had no intelligence, only an obsession. Anyone who tried to pass through the star passageway would be killed by them. In the past 3 days, Lin Sun had suffered no less than 10 similar attacks, so he was not surprised at all. The Taoist sword flashed gently. Puff! The astral warrior that rushed over was slain and dissipated. At the same time, a resplendent stone fell from the sky. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed it, then put it away. This object was the size of a goose egg, crystalline and translucent, and its surface was naturally covered in the markings of the stars. Moreover, it contained a strand of peerlessly copious vitality of the Grand Tao. According to the records in the world classics, this was the star nucleus of Tao pattern, which was the core of the power of the astral warrior. Each kind of star nucleus of Tao pattern was branded with different powers of the Grand Tao. It was extremely rare. If used for cultivation, a star nucleus of Tao pattern was equivalent to 100,000 eternal void source crystals. Moreover, this treasure could also be used to refine imperial weapons. It was a natural material for refining weapons. Now, Lin Sun had collected as many as 9. After experiencing it personally, he found that this treasure could greatly meet his cultivation need. Therefore, along the way, he even hoped that there would be more astral warriors. The reason was that this journey was too boring. As far as the eye could see, there was only the vast starry sky and the vast universe, and he was the only one moving forward. It was okay if it was a short time, but it was too boring after a long time. 10 days later, Lin Sun finally felt a great pressure. The suppressive force on the star path of domain was gradually becoming stronger. Now, Lin Sun had no choice but to operate his cultivation to resolve the oppressive force along the way. It seems that I'm about to reach the second heaven. Lin Sun was refreshed. While Lin Sun was trekking on the star path, the news about his appearance in the first heaven spread like a storm. The second heaven, the third heaven, the fourth heaven, when every heaven learned of this news, the great forces entrenched in it couldn't help but be shocked, causing an uproar. Lin Sun, the peerless, ruthless man regarded as the most wanted criminal in the eternal world, had actually appeared in the eternal world after several years of silence. It was difficult not to attract attention. One had to know that in the years he had been silent, the wanted list of him had already been posted on every city in the heavenly realm, and his achievements in the vast 1,000 battle domains had also spread throughout the world with the appearance of wanted posters. Nowadays, people mostly called Lin Sun Merciless Lin. Under such circumstances, when the news of his appearance in the first heaven spread, it was easy to imagine the uproar it caused. Behind the commotion, those immortal emperor clans that saw Lin Sun as a thorn in their side had already taken action at the first possible moment. The One clan, Hung clan, Zhu clan, He clan of the sixth heaven, the 4 eastern royal clans of the seventh heaven, the immortal giants of the eighth heaven, almost all of them immediately sent their strongest subordinates to the first heaven to kill. As a result, the cultivators in the first heaven all felt insecure, because recently there were too many big shots from the upper world. One after another, they all came for Lin Sun. Such a scene made some immortal emperor clans that had no enmity with Lin Sun, but were always paying attention to the changes in the world, secretly shocked. There was no doubt that the first heaven, a place that had never been taken seriously by the immortal emperor clans, had now become a place where the wind and clouds gathered after Lin Sun's appearance. Unfortunately, no matter how many great forces from the upper world came, they gained nothing in the end. Because Lin Sun had already trekked through the star path. Even he didn't know that his identity had been exposed and caused such a sensation. It was also 2 months later, when he arrived in the second heaven, that Lin Sun realized that something was wrong with the situation. He didn't bother to inquire at all, but he understood all kinds of things that happened recently. Especially when he learned that the immortal emperor clans had launched an operation to deal with him, Lin Sun made a decision counterattack. The forces of the immortal emperor clans that are entrenched in the sixth heaven and above are not limited to the heavens where they are located. Their tentacles spread between the first heaven and the fifth heaven. For example, the Yin and Yang Academy had the support of the Hong clan, He clan, and Zhu clan. And in the second heaven, the 9 Profound Academy, which was known as the number 1 force in this heaven, had more than 10 immortal emperor clans behind it. Among them, there were the figures of the One clan, Hung clan, He clan, and other immortal emperor clans. Lin Sun's counterattack was launched from the 9 Profound Academy. 1 month later, an incomparably bloody news spread throughout the second heaven. 19 Emperor Ancestor Realm Elders, 37 8th Level Emperor Realm Deacons, and 109 7th Level Emperor Realm Instructors of the 9 Mystical Institute were beheaded in a single night. The moment the news came out, the world was in an uproar. The 9 Profound Academy was the number 1 force in the second heaven, and there were many immortal emperor clans behind it. Since ancient times, no one dared to provoke them. But now, in one night, so many important figures were killed, and all of them were beheaded. This was undoubtedly too horrifying, unprecedented. The identity of the enemy was also known as soon as the news spread. This was because, on the tallest and most majestic merit stone tablet in the 9 Mystical Institute's central training hall, someone had used fresh blood to write a line of words. Lin Sun was here. Below this line of blood, there was a small mountain of heads, all left behind by the great figures who were killed. This bloody and cruel scene caused the world to tremble, and everyone's expression changed. The entire 9 Profound Academy was in a precarious situation. After the incident, people discovered that the great figures who were killed were cultivators who had served the immortal emperor clans for countless years. There was no doubt that this was Lin Sun's revenge. This vicious Lin is too cruel. Those great figures were only serving the immortal emperor clans, yet they were killed by him. How innocent are they? Some people were indignant, thinking that Lin Sun's actions were cruel and indiscriminate killing of innocent people. But very quickly, such comments were met with countless rebuttals and criticisms. Look at those old fellows who died. Which one of them was a good person when they were alive? Which one of them didn't do something that angered the heavens and angered the people during their years of service in the Nine Profound Academy? In order to help the immortal emperor clans plunder cultivation resources, the number of souls that died at their hands was more than tens of thousands. In the past, it was because they had the support of the immortal emperor clans. Even if their hands were stained with blood, people dared not speak up. But now, if anyone thinks that they didn't deserve to die, or that they died unjustly, then that's really a joke. Let's not talk about this for now. I just want to ask, is it right for those immortal emperor clans to deal with Vicious Lin, and Vicious Lin retaliated? Is it unforgivable? How can there be such logic in this world? In this world, the number of experts who were qualified to serve the immortal emperor clans was extremely small. Most of them were the ordinary cultivators who were scattered in every corner of the world. For countless years, the immortal emperor clans were like high and mighty monarchs, riding on their heads and occupying more than 90% of the cultivation resources in the world. They might be in awe of the immortal emperor clans, but deep in their hearts, how could they not feel resentment and anger? In the eyes of the vast majority of cultivators, Lin Sun's actions were simply enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. It made them excited and happy, and they even hoped that Lin Sun would kill more people. When the experts of the immortal emperor clans received the news and rushed to the second heaven, they were a step too late. Because on the night of the massacre, Lin Sun had already set foot on the star path to the third heaven. Chapter 2696. 3 years later. Seventh heaven, Lu Xiang clan. Xiang Xiaoyuan, who was dressed in a light yellow dress, sat in a pavilion in the middle of a pond in a secluded and beautiful small world that was transformed from a paradise. White cranes fluttered in the distance, and the slightly damp wind blew, mixed with rich spiritual energy and the fragrance of flowers and trees, making people feel relaxed and happy. "Miss, this is the latest news." A well-behaved and delicate maid walked over and handed a jade slip to Xiang Xiaoyuan with a smile. "That ruthless Lin is really powerful, no wonder Miss is so concerned about him." A mischievous smile appeared on her face. Xiang Xiaoyuan glared at her, and the latter spat out her lilac tongue, then turned around and left with a smile. Xiang Xiaoyuan opened the jade slip, which recorded the recent event. A month ago, Lin Sun appeared in the fourth heaven, and within 7 days, he attacked the 3 major universities, setting off another bloody war. According to statistics, in this war, a total of 46 great figures who served different immortal emperor clans fell. After this war, the fourth heaven fell into a sensation. All the people in the world were shocked by Lin Sun's actions. Although a group of immortal emperor clans had already made sufficient preparations, in the end, Lin Sun still escaped safely. The world said that such a bloody event will be staged in the fifth heaven soon. After silently reading the news in the jade slip many times, Xiang Xiaoyuan's ruddy lips opened slightly, and she let out a long sigh. Her whole body relaxed a lot. After the end of the events in the ruins of the gods, Xiang Xiaoyuan came to the seventh heaven under the leadership of her uncle Lu Xiangke to cultivate in the place where the Lu Xiang family is located. In the years when Lin Sun disappeared, Xiang Xiaoyuan often thought of him, but every time she thought of him, she couldn't help but feel sad. In the past, Lin Sun had helped her a lot in the vast thousand battles domain. However, when Lin Sun had encountered a great calamity outside the god's ruins, she could only hide in Chaotian City, and was unable to help him at all. This had caused her to feel endless regret and self-blame. Xiang Xiaoyuan knew that even if she risked her life to help Lin Sun, it was no different from courting death, and it was very likely that she would implicate Lin Sun. but the self-blame and sadness in her heart couldn't be eliminated. All these years, she had been painstakingly cultivating in the Xionglu clan. She had practically never left the house, all for the sake of becoming stronger one day. 3 years ago, when she learned that Lin Sun appeared in the first heaven, Xiang Xiaoyuan was overjoyed. From then on, she began to pay attention to all news related to Lin Sun. It had been 3 years. Every once in a while, there would be news about Lin Sun. In the second heaven, he broke into the 9 Mystical Institute at night, beheaded a group of people, and left behind the words, "Lin Sun was here." In the third heaven, his whereabouts are mysterious and erratic, but as long as he appears, bloody things will happen. Almost all of the people he killed were important figures in the enemy forces. During this period of time, those eternal powers had sent out many forces to pursue and kill Lin Sun, but Lin Sun had practically avoided them in advance every single time. Each heaven domain was extremely vast, and Lin Sun was alone. The most terrifying thing was that his combat power was invincible in the Ju-Ing Imperial Ancestor realm, and he had mastered many incredible means. So much so that even if some eternal powers participated in the pursuit, they couldn't find Lin Sun's traces. When people thought that he would start a massacre, he would disappear as if he had disappeared. But when people relaxed, he would appear again without anyone noticing. He came and went as suddenly as he came. This kind of thing happened countless times, giving those eternal emperor clans a headache. Chasing a person all over the world, especially when the person was a ruthless character with tyrannical combat strength, was indeed too difficult. The most troublesome thing was that Lin Sun was alone, not afraid of any threat at all. Even if the world was turned upside down, as long as they couldn't find his traces, they could only watch helplessly. It had been 3 years. From the first heaven to the fourth heaven, almost every once in a while, there would be sensational news related to Lin Sun. And these sensational news were often accompanied by bloody storms. Those eternal emperor clans hated Lin Sun to the core. They were furious. Most of the ordinary cultivators in the world saw Lin Sun as a legend. There were countless admirers. Even Xiang Xiaoyuan, when she saw news about Lin Sun every once in a while, she would sigh. This was the eternal world. Since the beginning of time, when has such a ruthless person appeared? Fearless of the eternal powers, causing chaos in the world, turning the world upside down. But, if this continues, your situation will become more and more dangerous. If you encounter some unexpected situation, then the consequences. Xiang Xiaoyuan shook her head, not daring to think further. In these 3 years, Lin Sun had killed who knows how many powerhouses who served the eternal powers. The ruckus he caused also became bigger and bigger. Right now, he seemed ferocious and powerful, as if no one could deal with him. However, how could those undying realm powers that had already been enraged let this matter rest? It could be said that as time went on, if Lin Sun continued to kill like this, his situation would become more and more dangerous. Xiaoyuan. In the distance, Lu Xiangchua's tall and imposing figure appeared. "Uncle, why are you looking for me?" Xiang Xiaoyuan woke up from her chaotic thoughts and stood up to greet him. "I just received news that the Origin Sect's ancestral court will be recruiting successors in 10 years. Only peak great emperors can participate." Lu Xiangchua was very excited. Origin Sect's ancestral court? Xiang Xiaoyuan showed a puzzled expression. Only then did Lu Xiangchua realize that Xiang Xiaoyuan had just arrived in the 7th heaven for a few years and did not know what the Origin Sect's ancestral court represented. He immediately explained patiently. In the absolute beginning of the eternal world, there were 4 ancestral halls in the 7th heaven. They were the Origin Sect, Spirit Sect, Shaman Sect, and Zen Sect. These 4 ancestral halls were also known as the 4 sects of absolute beginning. It was rumored that the ancestors of the 4 ancestral halls were terrifying existences from the 9th heaven. Each of them had immortal and peerless techniques. With this mysterious legend, the four great ancestral halls became the four most transcendent forces of power in the seventh heaven of eternal true world. In fact, even the 10 immortal giants who occupied the eighth heaven had to be courteous to the four ancestral halls, not daring to provoke them. On the contrary, in the past, countless cultivators from the 10 immortal giants fought to enter the four ancestral halls. This undoubtedly made the status of the four ancestral halls even more transcendent. However, for most cultivators in the world, the existence of the four ancestral halls was like an ethereal legend. The reason was that, unlike the other immortal forces, the four ancestral halls were hidden from the world. There were very few things related to them that spread. But in the eyes of the immortal emperor clans, the four ancestral halls represented four colossi. They were transcendent forces that they could look up to. After all, according to rumors, the four ancestral halls had an inseparable relationship with the ninth heaven. This was enough to make any immortal force admire them. In fact, for a great force like the Lu Xiangque, which was rooted in the seventh heaven, it undoubtedly knew some of the secrets of the four ancestral halls. According to Lu Xiangque, in the past, as long as one could enter the four ancestral halls to cultivate, it was equivalent to having the qualifications to go to the eighth heaven to cultivate. In fact, it was even rumored that some extremely talented people were chosen by the supreme figures of the ninth heaven and brought back to the ninth heaven to cultivate. It was a pity that the four ancestral halls rarely openly accepted disciples to the outside world. These transcendent forces most of the time roamed the world, taking the initiative to find disciples that could be recognized by them. However, the lucky ones who could be selected were very few. In Lu Xiangque's memory, a long time ago, the Spirit Church's ancestral hall released news that they were openly accepting disciples from the world. Although there were only 30 spots, it still caused an unprecedented sensation in the eternal world. Lu Xiangque still couldn't forget that at that time, the patriarchs of the 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven personally led their teams to participate in the trial. The momentum was so great that it could be said to be the greatest in the world. The immortal emperor clans of the seventh heaven also rubbed their hands and used all their resources and power, trying to get a share of the 30 spots. As for the immortal emperor clans of the sixth heaven, they also couldn't hold back and used all kinds of connections and power, trying to send their most outstanding disciples to the seventh heaven to participate in this selection. Such a grand occasion could absolutely be said to be unprecedented and never to be repeated again. Now, the Origin Church's ancestral hall actually announced to the public that they would openly select disciples in 10 years. How could this not make Lu Xiangque excited? In fact, when he received the news, the entire seventh heaven was also alarmed by this news and set off a great uproar. 10 years. It seemed very far, but for cultivators it was nothing at all. On the contrary, it was precisely because of this period of time that they could prepare for this selection. After learning about this, Xiang Xiaoyuan couldn't help but be shocked. The four ancestral halls. What kind of transcendent and terrifying force was that? Even the recruitment of disciples required one to have the cultivation of great Emperor Ju-ing. Just from this point, one could see how powerful the foundation of such a force was. Xiaoyuan, from now on you should focus on cultivating. When the 10-year deadline arrives, the clan will hold a competition to select the 3 most outstanding clansmen to represent the Lu Xiang family to participate in the selection of the Origin Church's ancestral hall. Although your surname is not Lu, the blood of the Lu Xiang family flows in your body. I have already helped you obtain the qualification to participate in the clan competition. Don't waste such an opportunity. If you can enter the Origin Church's ancestral hall to cultivate, speaking of this, a look of longing appeared in Lu Xiangque's eyes. At that time, it won't be difficult for you to enter the eighth heaven. You might even have the opportunity to learn about the secrets of the ninth heaven. Xiang Xiaoyuan was shocked at first, then she became excited, which was rare for her. Chapter 2697. The fifth heaven. In the depths of the northwest ice field, in a cave mansion tens of thousands of feet underground. Jade-green radiance rained down as the primordial Tao tree took root, and its leaves swayed while it emanated the supreme profundities of the grand Daos of the last era. Lin Sun sat cross-legged in meditation, calming his mind and comprehending the mysteries of the great Tao. Not far away, Nie Qingrong was refining her life emperor weapon, while Leng Qingxue was guiding Shao Shi's cultivation. Although the outside world was bitterly cold, the cave mansion was as warm as spring, quiet and peaceful. This is the third month since Lin Sun and the others entered the fifth heaven. It is also the 3rd year and 4 months since Lin Sun and the others left the first heaven. In the past 3 years, starting from the first heaven to the 4th heaven, Lin Sun has already turned the heaven and earth upside down. It is unknown how many great figures who served the enemy forces have fallen. For Lin Sun, this counterattack is just the beginning. After all, the people he killed along the way were a group of lackeys. The losses of those immortal emperor clans aren't serious. Therefore, although his reputation has become more and more famous over the years, for Lin Sun, there is nothing to be proud of. I'm going out for a walk. After a long time, Lin Sun got up from meditation and said, "Don't leave this place before I come back." Nie Qingrong, Leng Qingxue, and Shao Shi nodded in unison. Over the years, they have been following Lin Sun. Although most of the time is in the abyssal sword cauldron, they have seen everything Lin Sun has done. From the beginning, they were still worried about Lin Sun, but since Lin Sun repeatedly escaped danger, and killed all the way from the 2nd heaven to the 5th heaven, Lin Sun's heaven-defying combat power has long convinced their hearts. They are no longer as worried and perturbed as they were at the beginning. In fact, it was like a dream for them to follow Lin Sun to fight for so long, and they often felt it was unreal. Brother Lin isn't going to fight again, is he? After Lin Sun left, Leng Qingxue couldn't help but ask. Over the years, every time Lin Sun goes to a heaven, he will lie dormant for a period of time, until he understands the specific situation of the heaven, then he will launch a series of bloody killings. Not to the extent of fighting, but definitely to gather information. Nie Qingrong's beautiful eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. This is already the 5th heaven. It's different from the other heavens. There are many immortal emperor clans in this world. Although they can't be compared to the 6th heaven, there are still undying existences in these immortal emperor clans. Not to mention these immortal imperial clans. Just like the 6th heaven's immortal imperial clans, they were disgraced by Brother Lin in the past few years. If I were them, I would definitely mobilize the strongest force to deal a fatal blow to Brother Lin in the 5th heaven. Towards the end, his voice became low and his heart felt heavy. Leng Qingxue was stunned for a while, then nodded. What elder sister said is indeed reasonable. Above the 5th heaven is the 6th heaven. That is the base of those immortal emperor clans. If we can't stop Brother Lin this time, it won't be long before Brother Lin reaches the 6th heaven. If this is the case, the enemies of the 6th heaven won't be able to sleep and eat in peace. After all, although they have suffered heavy losses in the past few years, the people they lost were just some subordinates who served them. However, once Brother Lin reaches the 6th heaven, his existence will be like a hidden blade that will directly threaten these immortal imperial clans. Perhaps with Brother Lin's current combat power, he can't overthrow an immortal imperial clan, but if he deliberately causes destruction, how many immortal imperial clans can withstand such a torment? Nie Qingrong couldn't help but be surprised by her words. She said, "Qingxue, you're much more thoughtful now than before. The path of cultivation is related to one's temperament and the things one has experienced in the world. In the past, I was only obsessed with cultivation and didn't know much about worldly affairs. That's because I knew that if I left the first heaven, the chances of success would be extremely slim." A faint smile appeared on Leng Qingxue's beautiful face. "But it's different now. We have come to the 5th heaven. Everything is different from before. Naturally, I can't be like before. Nie Qing Rong praised. This is called insight into worldly affairs. The transformation of one's temperament often means that the path of cultivation will also undergo subtle changes. This is all thanks to Brother Lin. If he didn't take us out of the first heaven, I'm afraid we won't have many opportunities to come to the fifth heaven in this life. Speaking of this, Leng Qingxue couldn't help but worry. It's just that the situation in the fifth heaven is probably more dangerous than we expected. Brother Lin, don't worry, Brother Lin will be fine. Nie Qing Rong said firmly. Xiao Shi, who has been listening silently, also nodded fiercely at this moment and said in a clear voice. Brother Daoyuan is so powerful, of course he will be fine. The world is vast, and ice and snow are fluttering. Lin Sun walked forward with his hands behind his back. Every step he took was like shrinking the earth into an inch, and the horizon is very close. He disappeared in an instant. Just like Nie Qing Rong and Leng Qingxue, Lin Sun also knows that the fifth heaven will become different from the past. The enemy is likely to have already taken action in the dark. But Lin Sun isn't afraid. In the past, due to his limited strength, he often chose to retreat when facing the pursuit of some terrifying existences, either hibernating or leaving far away. But the current him is no longer the same as before. How can he endure and retreat? During these years of battle and slaughter, he'd encountered danger on numerous occasions, and he'd even been targeted and pursued by undying figures. However, he'd always been able to escape safely every single time. In other words, unless he is in an absolute predicament, even immortals don't have much chance to kill him. Because of this, he was able to fight all the way from the second heaven to the fifth heaven over the years. Soon, when I step into the peak of the Emperor Ancestor late stage, maybe I can fight head-on with immortals of the same lifespan realm. Lin Sun moved forward while comprehending the mystery of his own qi. The battles over the years have allowed him to achieve many transformations in killing and danger. Now his cultivation base has broken through to the mid-stage of the Ancestor realm and has reached the peak. This rapid improvement is related to the battle tempering, but also closely related to the changes in the environment. If it weren't for leaving the first heaven, even Lin Sun wouldn't dare to imagine that a higher heaven would have such a great effect on cultivation. For example, in the eyes of emperors, if the first heaven is a small pond, then the second heaven is a gurgling stream. The third heaven is like a vast lake. The fourth heaven is like a surging river. And this fifth heaven is like a vast ocean. Even the laws of the world, the aura of the great Tao, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, all have completely different changes. According to Lin Sun's inference, just the third heaven is enough for any Emperor Ancestor realm existence to live comfortably. The fourth heaven can already satisfy the cultivation of immortals, and this fifth heaven can not only provide sufficient cultivation resources for immortals, but it also has innate conditions for immortals to break through. It's no wonder that emperors like Nie Qingrong and Leng Qingxue are so persistent about leaving the first heaven, because different heavens have completely different scenes. Lin Sun is even sure that if he hadn't left the first heaven, his cultivation base would never have improved so quickly. Occasionally, Lin Sun would think of his senior brothers and sisters in Fangtsuan Mountain. With their foundation and root bones, after being suppressed in the starry sky ancient path for so many years, when they arrived in the eternal true world, they were like trapped dragons rising to the sky. Their cultivation base will definitely explode beyond imagination in a very short period of time. This is only the fifth heaven. Compared to this, what will the sixth, seventh, and eighth heaven be like? Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh. He thought of Qi Lingyun, Zhong Li Shao, Qi Pejuan, and other great emperors from the eighth heaven when he was in the ruins of the gods. He also thought of Yun Luohong, who is known as one of the 10 great emperors of the seventh heaven. These dazzling nobles have been cultivating in the seventh and eighth heaven since they were born. They have the support of the immortal emperor clans. Since childhood, they have enjoyed rare cultivation resources that ordinary cultivators can't even imagine. How could their path of cultivation be mediocre? The world of cultivation is destined to be unfair from the moment they are born. No matter how amazing you are, if you are born in a poor and remote place, you will be trapped in that small world for the rest of your life. Yun Qingbai is a living example. On the other hand, no matter how mediocre you are, if you are born in one of the top 10 immortal forces of the 8th heaven, your achievements in this life are destined to be great. Mediocre aptitude? Then use all kinds of divine materials to create a strong foundation for cultivation. Mediocre talent? Then ask a group of immortals to teach you and guide you. I don't believe that you won't be enlightened. Poor root bones? It doesn't matter. I will use some heaven-defying taboo power to wash your marrow and reconstruct your body. A waste that can't cultivate? That's not a problem. With the might and power of the clan, you can live a carefree and unfettered life for the rest of your life. This is the unfair place, the cruel reality that has been predestined. Like Lin Sun, who walked out of the mine prison, rose from insignificance, walked in the Xiao Empire, and became famous in the ancient Desolation domain over the years, it was unknown how many dangers and battles he had experienced, but also how many life and death tribulations he had experienced today. In contrast, nobles like Qi Lingyun and Zhong Li Xiao don't have to suffer so many ups and downs at all. They can have the same cultivation as Lin Sun. This is the innate gap. Fortunately, the innate gap can still be made up by hard work. Otherwise, the way of the world would be too despairing. Chapter 2698. A few days later, Lin Sun came to a city. On the streets, in tea-houses, restaurants, everyone was talking about the recruitment of the ancestral court of the Huyuan sect. This made Lin Sun a little surprised. It didn't take long for him to inquire and understand some rumors related to the 4 ancestral courts. He was very surprised. There is actually such a transcendent force in the 7th heaven? Even the top 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven have to show respect to them. One can imagine how terrifying the background of the 4 ancestral courts is. In this regard, Lin Sun wasn't very interested. Just like in the past few years, he began to collect information and news related to the 5th heaven in the city, preparing for the next battle. Until the evening, Lin Sun left the city. In his hands, he has already obtained detailed information about the great forces of the 5th heaven. Unlike the first 4 heavens, the 5th heaven is occupied by many immortal emperor clans. These forces are the true overlords of the 5th heaven. They are also related to the immortal emperor clans of the 6th heaven, but they are not vassals. They are different from the cultivators who serve the immortal emperor clans of the 6th heaven. After carefully sorting out the information, Lin soon discovered that in this 5th heaven, there is only one force that is really related to his enemies. Fengyan Academy. This is a force that selects talents for the immortal emperor clans of the 6th heaven, but the background of this force is extremely complicated. The reason was that many members of the immortal emperor clans in the 5th heaven had also entered the Fengyan Academy to cultivate, causing the academy to be a mix of good and bad, with many factions standing in its place. For example, the great figures of the Fengyan Academy are not only on good terms with the immortal emperor clans of the 6th heaven, but also inextricably linked with the immortal emperor clans of the 5th heaven. It's difficult to distinguish which camp these great figures belong to. After thinking for a long time, Lin Sun finally decided to wait. It's not too late to make a decision after finding more valuable information. In the next period of time, he was like a passerby, trekking between mountains and rivers, walking through many cities. In a flash, a month passed. In Lin Sun's hands, more and more news showed that the place where the Fengyan Academy is located has now become a dragon's pool and tiger's den. Those enemies of his seemed to have guessed long ago that he would choose Misty Institution as his target, so they'd set up a trap near Misty Institution in advance and mobilized all their forces to lie in ambush. It was said that many undyings were participating as well. It was said that in order to kill Lin Sun this time, an inescapable net had been set up near Fengyan Academy. Even an undying being would not be able to escape death if he were to step in. It was said there were countless such rumors. Although Lin Sun couldn't judge whether they were true or false, these rumors must not be groundless when they were constantly circulating in the world. They really have a good plan. Lin Sun couldn't help sighing with a smile. Over the years, he had killed many opponents, but as long as one was observant, it would not be difficult to discover that all the people he killed were lackeys who served under his enemies. The enemy may have seen this point, so he made arrangements in Fengyan School early, because in the entire fifth heaven, only Fengyan School is the most likely target for Lin Sun. In that case there were only two results. Either he was courageous enough to break into the dragon's pool and tiger's den, which undoubtedly fell into the enemy's trap, or he chose to retreat, so that the enemy's wishful thinking may fail, but they won't lose anything because of it. However, Lin Sun didn't believe that those enemy forces only had this kind of means, because this is the fifth heaven and above is the sixth heaven. If they let him leave alive, wouldn't those enemies worry that he would attack the sixth heaven? It would be too passive to ambush all their forces in Fengyan School. Lin Sun was very suspicious that the recent news about Fengyan School was very likely to be a means of confusion. In the dark, those enemy forces might have already taken action. However, if he were them, where would they choose to stop him? Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but look up at the sky. Star path. Or it was near the entrance of the star path. Is that really the case? Lin Sun pondered, but in the end, he didn't go to test it, but chose to return. A few days later, in the depths of the ice field in the cave mansion. The current situation in the fifth heaven seems to be treacherous, but that's only for me. On the contrary, you don't have to worry about any risks in this world. As soon as Lin Sun returned, he decided to settle Niechingrong, Lung Qingxue, Shao Shi, and the others. Because if he enters the sixth heaven, he will have too many enemies. Once the enemies discover the existence of Niechingrong and the others, they are bound to be affected. On the contrary, in these years, although Niechingrong and the others have been by his side, they spent most of their time in the abyssal sword cauldron, and the enemies don't even know of their existence. At this time, he doesn't have to worry about any disturbances if he places them in the fifth heaven. Niechingrong, Lung Qingxue, and the others also understand this, but when they thought that they might have to part ways with Lin Sun from now on, they couldn't help but feel reluctant. Brother Lin, with our means, it's easy to survive in the fifth heaven, and we will take good care of Shao Shi and not let her be bullied. Taking a deep breath, Niechingrong said. So, you don't have to worry about our matters anymore, but you must take care of yourself. Her words were full of sincerity from the bottom of her heart. Lin Sun smiled and nodded. At this time, Lung Qingxue also stared at Lin Sun with a pair of clear eyes, her expression solemn and serious. Brother Lin, I mean if anything happens to you, I will avenge you in the future. On the side, Shao Shi also raised her head and stared at Lin Sun with tears in her eyes. Brother Daoyuan, will you come to see us in the future? Lin Sun rubbed her little head and said. Of course. It's a deal. Shao Shi stretched out her hand. It's a deal. Lin Sun held her hand and replied seriously. On the same day, Lin Sun left quietly. Lin Sun didn't rush to the sixth heaven. In fact, even if he was eager to go to the Luo family for revenge, with his current combat power, he might be able to suppress most of the cultivators of the Luo family, but once he encounters a powerful immortal, he will be in danger. What's more, he has been waiting for so many years, there's no hurry. In the following period of time, Lin Sun walked in the fifth heaven like a wild crane, drifting erratically. Occasionally, he would meditate in the mountains and also walk in the city. The only thing he didn't do was to get close to the area occupied by Fengyan School. Several months passed in a hurry. On this day, on a blue sea, A lonely boat floated on it at night, letting the waves beat it, sailing to the depths of the vast ocean. Lin Sun sat cross-legged on it, holding a bronze box in his hand. He looked a little nervous. Many years ago, when he was in the Xian family, Xian Shangchen, the head of the Xian family, gave him this bronze box and said that it was left by Lu Boya. The bronze box sealed clues related to Lin Sun's mother, Luo Qingxuan. If Lin Sun can't crack the seal on the bronze box within 100 years, he must destroy it. But such a situation is destined to be impossible. Because today, after years of deduction and cracking, the layers of seals covering the bronze box have been completely broken by Lin Sun. However, when he was about to open the bronze box, Lin Sun was a little hesitant, and an unspeakable tension surged in his heart. Although the secret hidden in the bronze box was related to his mother, Luo Qingxuan, he had never seen Luo Qingxuan since he was a child. He had also thought about what to say when he met his parents one day, and also imagined various scenes of meeting his parents in his mind. But after all, it was just his fantasy. Just like at this moment, when he really had the ability to open the bronze box, he was a little nervous. This kind of nervousness was very subtle, with excitement and uneasiness, which Lin Sun had never experienced before. In the final analysis, he had been used to being alone since he was a child. He had never experienced parents and family love, so it seemed vague and strange. After a long time, Lin Sun took a deep breath, and his eyes were full of firmness. Buzz. With the strength of his palms and fingers, the restriction power covering the bronze box disappeared one by one, as if layers of mysterious veils were lifted. In the end, the original and old appearance of the bronze box was revealed. Crack! When Lin Sun's fingertips moved slightly, the bronze box, which had been sealed for a long time, was slowly opened in front of Lin Sun. Inside the bronze box, there was an extremely ordinary wooden hairpin, which seemed to be worn by a woman. It was elegant and simple. The end of the wooden hairpin was engraved with 2 words, Qingxuan. Lin Sun was stunned at first, and then his heart trembled slightly uncontrollably. This wooden hairpin must have been left by his mother, Luo Qingxuan. He raised his fingers and slowly approached the wooden hairpin, as if he was treating the most precious treasure in the world, lest he should hurt it. When his fingertips touched the wooden hairpin, a silent force in his blood seemed to be awakened and resonated with the aura of the wooden hairpin. Immediately, a dreamlike cyan light rain suddenly drifted from the wooden hairpin and gradually outlined a graceful and delicate figure in the void. Dressed in a cyan dress, her hair was black, and there was a smile on her white and soft face. Her eyes were bright, full of excitement and joy. As soon as she appeared, her eyes fell on Lin Sun for the first time, and her eyes gradually became dull as if she was possessed. At the same time, Lin Sun only felt that his head was struck by lightning, and suddenly became blank. He had long thought about what was sealed in the bronze box. Was it a token? Or some kind of clue related to the trace of his mother, Luo Qingxuan? But he had never imagined that he would see such a scene at this moment. How could he not know that this was his mother, Luo Qingxuan, whom he had missed countless times since he was young? Recently, it is very difficult to write the plot, so the second update is a little late. I apologize to everyone. Chapter 2699. For the first time since he started his cultivation, Lin Sun lost his composure like this. His mind was in turmoil, and countless memories of the past emerged like a chaotic tide. When he was young, he went to Xiao Empire alone to explore the mystery of his origin. He went to the ancient Desolation Realm to seek revenge on Yun Qinbai, in order to find out the truth of the Lin family's murder case. He traveled all over the starry sky just to find Quasi-Emperor Ba Qi in the past. No matter how many twists and turns and frustrations there were, Lin Sun found out many truths step by step. Those truths were cruel, but fortunately, all the clues had proved that his parents and Master Lu were still alive. This gave Lin Sun the greatest comfort. But so many years had passed, but Lin Sun still didn't know where his parents and Master Lu were. Every time he thought of this, he couldn't help feeling upset. But he didn't expect that at this moment, when he opened the dusty bronze box, he would see his mother. This sudden scene made Lin Sun's Taoist heart, which had been tempered for a long time, show signs of losing control. After some time, Lin Sun heard a choked and trembling voice, "Sooner." Lin Sun's body stiffened, and his chaotic thoughts dissipated. He suddenly looked up and saw the figure in the void that he had been yearning for day and night. At this moment, tears were flowing down from her eyes, and her fair and beautiful face was full of emotion and sadness after the excitement. In her crystal-clear eyes there was a sense of guilt and debt. Lin Sun felt that his throat was blocked, and he could no longer control his surging emotions. He asked, "Mother, is it really you?" Yes, at this moment, he still felt like he was in a dream. Luo Qingxuan took a deep breath, stepped forward, and hugged Lin Sun tightly. Crystal tears kept flowing down her cheek. Years of waiting, expectation, depression, sadness, and longing all burst out from the depths of her heart like a mountain torrent that had been suppressed for a long time. Lin Sun was at a loss at first, but later, he also stretched out his arms and hugged Luo Qingxuan gently. An indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. He was the invincible Emperor Ju Yin in the eyes of the world, the well-known merciless Lin in the eternal world, but now he was just a son in front of his mother. However, he was still a little unfamiliar with this role. After a long time, Luo Qingxuan stopped crying. She slowly raised her head and stared at Lin Sun's resolute and handsome face. She said in a trembling voice, "Sun, do you blame your mother?" Lin Sun shook his head, "Never." Luo Qingxuan felt a wave of sourness in her heart. They had been separated since they were young, and she had never been able to accompany her own flesh and blood as they grew up. Now that they had finally reunited, the little guy in her memory who was still crying piteously in swaddling clothes had now become a tall and steady good man. After a long time, Luo Qingxuan calmed her mind and said in a gentle voice, "Sooner, can you tell me about what you've experienced all these years?" His voice was filled with ardent hope. This was a mother's desire to understand her son's past. Lin Sun nodded, and his heart was filled with excitement. However, he was no longer a teenager. Having gone through countless hardships, it was difficult for him to show all his emotions like a child. He also took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with reminiscence. He began to talk about the time when he lived with Master Lu in the mine prison. The blue sea was vast, the sky was high, and the clouds were thin. On a lonely boat, the mother and son reunited. Lin Sun was talking, and Luo Qingxuan was listening. It seemed that everything in the world had nothing to do with them. After a long time, Lin Sun finished talking about all kinds of things along the way. Although he was concise, Luo Qingxuan still felt emotional and couldn't calm down for a long time. "I didn't expect that you have suffered so much these years." Luo Qingxuan was stunned, with a guilty look on her face, and she blamed herself in her heart. Lin Sun comforted her with a smile. "Is it bitter? I don't think so. It's just that I can't see you and my father for a long time, so I inevitably feel a little melancholy." Luo Qingxuan let out a long sigh and said, "Fate is unpredictable. I've often thought whether it's a blessing or a curse to possess the bloodline of the devouring abyss. If it's a blessing, it's because this bloodline allows us to possess unimaginable talent and strength on the path of cultivation. If it's a curse, no matter if it's me, your father, Elder Lu, or you, all the hardships we've encountered all these years are because of this talent." As she finished speaking, her expression was filled with melancholy. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh with emotion. When he was born, he was killed by the enemy because of the bloodline of the devouring abyss, and it led to the Lin family's massacre. From then on, he completely lost contact with his parents. Until he grew up, most of the disasters he encountered were related to the devouring abyss. For example, the pursuit of the violet-clothed woman, Yan Xing, the hostility of the nameless Supreme Emperor, the pursuit of Shi Tiandi. Even now, the enmity between him and the Luo clan hadn't been truly ended. All of this was caused by the devouring abyss. Sooner, I know you must have a lot of doubts in your heart. Before that, I'll tell you some of the past events one by one. After that, you can ask me anything you want to know. Luo Qingxuan looked at Lin Sun and said in a gentle and intimate voice. Immediately, she told him everything that had happened in the past. In the Luo clan, the clansmen were divided into two parts, the main branch and the branch. Among them, the branch of Luo Tongtian, the lord of Tongtian, was the direct descendant of the main branch. According to seniority, Luo Tongtian was Luo Qingxuan's grandfather. A long time ago, Luo Tongtian set foot on the journey to the everlasting star path, but he encountered a great disaster and his whereabouts were unknown. Without Luo Tongtian, the Luo clan was like a group of dragons without a leader and was implicated. There was also a fierce internal strife within the clan, which led to the decline of the clan. Originally, the position of the patriarch should be inherited by Luo Tongtian's son, Luo Qingxuan's father, Luo Xiao. But on the issue of inheriting the position of the patriarch, there was a huge disagreement and dispute between the direct descendant and the branch. The reason was that although Luo Xiao was the son of Luo Tongtian, he had not awakened the bloodline of the Devourer of Abyss, and his cultivation was not enough to convince the public. Those branch members all elected Luo Chong as the patriarch. Among the same generation, Luo Chong's strength was the first, and he was highly valued by some elders of the Luo clan. In order to compete for the position of the patriarch, the direct descendant and the branch members of the Luo clan almost had a conflict. But in the end, because of Luo Zhao's mysterious disappearance, Luo Chong smoothly inherited the power of the patriarch. At that time, the direct descendants suspected that Luo Zhao's disappearance was extremely strange and must have something to do with Luo Chong. However, no one could find any evidence. In addition, Luo Chong had inherited the power of the Luo clan at that time and controlled the power of order, so the matter was also suppressed. From then on, a disaster came for the direct descendant. Under Luo Chong's instigation, more than 10 elders of the direct descendant and the main branch were imprisoned and suppressed with various crimes. The authority and duties held by these elders were all taken away and handed over to some elders of the branch. Subsequently, Luo Chong announced that his son, Luo Yuni, would be the young patriarch, and he ordered Luo Qingxuan and her older brother, Luo Qingheng, to serve Luo Yuni and assist him. Luo Qingheng was the Star Obscurity Emperor and Luo Qingxuan's older brother. When they found out about this, Luo Qingheng and Luo Qingxuan didn't object on the surface, and they endured it silently while secretly investigating the reason for the mysterious disappearance of their father, Luo Xiao. Never had they imagined that even then, a vicious scheme against them and their younger sister had been carried out. Luo Chong used the pretext of wanting to reawaken the natural talent of the Grand Devouring Abyss to specially open up the Luo clan's Forbidden Area secret realm, and he said he wanted to allow Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan to enter it to cultivate. But this matter was exposed by Lu Boya, and he secretly told Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan that Luo Chong did this for the sake of forcefully stripping away their natural talent within the Forbidden Area secret realm and passing it to his son, Luo Yuni. After they found out the truth, Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan snuck out of the Luo clan with the help of Lu Boya. When Luo Chong came to his senses, it was already too late. He immediately ordered powerful warriors to chase after Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan. During the chase, Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan suffered great injuries. In the end, with the help of an old friend of Lu Boya's, they crossed the galaxy and reached the ancient path of the galaxy. Lu Boya's old friend was a sage of the Xian clan, and his name was Xian Fei Ling. When Luo Qingxuan arrived at the Xian clan with Xian Fei Ling's sword in her hand, the Xian clan arranged for her to enter the lower realm where the ultimate ruins were located. because Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan had heard that a powerful existence like their grandfather, Luo Tongtian, had once been defeated by a supreme figure in the ultimate ruins. That supreme figure was the master of Core Mountain, and the ultimate ruins was where the teachings of Core Mountain were located. If they could obtain Core Mountain's help, they might be able to return to the eternal true world and take revenge. This was the reason why Luo Qingxuan and Luo Qingxuan had gone to the lower realm. But when they reached the lower realm, Luo Qingxuan's injuries were too severe, and she fell into a long period of silence. Meanwhile, Battle Emperor Star Obscurity traveled the world in search of the ultimate ruins where Core Mountain was located. At that time, it was the primitive times. It was also at that time that the nameless Supreme Emperor, who had chased them all the way, controlled the forbidden power of order and covered the entire ancient path of the galaxy under the power of order. Worried that the nameless Supreme Emperor would discover their traces, Lu Boya took Luo Qingxuan, who was in a coma, and hid in the lower realm. Countless years passed in the blink of an eye. Later, Luo Qingheng, who was known as Battle Emperor Star Obscurity, once entered the ultimate ruins, but found that the teachings of Core Mountain had already turned into a relic. Luo Qingheng was unwilling to give up and continued to search. After many years of investigation, he finally found some clues related to Core Mountain and went to Ancient Desolation, Dark Parasol Mountain. The reason was that there was a secluded sect founded by Li Xianwei, the successor of Core Mountain. But when Luo Qingheng arrived, Li Xianwei and the others had already left. Hearing this, Lin Sun finally understood why he could see the stone tablet left by his uncle, Star Melancholy Battle Emperor, and perceived the talent power left in the stone tablet on the Kangwu Mountain. It turned out that Battle Emperor Star Obscurity had gone to find his senior brother, Li Xianwei. Later, Luo Qingheng left the Ancient Desolation and went to other places. From then on, Luo Qingheng disappeared completely, and there was no news of him. At that time, Luo Qingxuan was still in a state of silence, and Lu Boya had been guarding her, so no one knew where Luo Qingheng had gone. Speaking of this, Luo Qingxuan's eyes were full of sadness and disappointment. Chapter 2700. Luo Qingxuan calmed herself down and talked about what happened after she woke up. When she woke up in Xiao Empire, she had a brief amnesia. Lu Boya, who had been guarding her silently at that time, did not tell her the truth. Because at that time, the Starry Sky Ancient Road was still covered by the power of order of the nameless Supreme Emperor. He was worried that Luo Qingxuan would not be able to bear the blow and do something risky after learning that her brother Luo Qingheng was missing. Therefore, Luo Qingxuan, who lost her memory, did not know what had happened in the past. Like an inexperienced woman, she participated in the various selections in Xiao Empire and entered Green Deer School as the first place. It was also there that she met Lin Wenjing, the eldest son of the Lin family, and soon fell in love with him. When Lu Boya learned about this, it was too late to stop them from being together. Later, Lin Wenjing married Luo Qingxuan and gave birth to Lin Sun in the second year of their marriage. But it was not long before the Lin family's murder broke out abruptly. Hearing this, Lin Sun could not help but sigh in his heart. Luo Qingxuan's face also became gloomy. After a while, she cheered up and said, "You probably know what happened that year. Do you still have any doubts?" Lin Sun blurted out, "Where did you and my father go that year?" "The ruins of fate," Luo Qingxuan answered without hesitation. It turned out that when she used the Sword of Fate to launch the forbidden power of order controlled by the nameless Supreme Emperor to send Lu Boya and Lin Sun away, she thought she would die for sure. Unexpectedly, she accidentally triggered the power of the Sword of Fate and was sent to the ruins of fate at the first time. Speaking of the Sword of Fate, it was one of the most precious treasures left by Luo Tongtian in the clan a long time ago. Before Luo Xiao disappeared mysteriously, it was handed over to Luo Qingxuan. The Ruins of Fate is extremely magical and full of unimaginable opportunities and fortunes. Unfortunately, it is easy to go in but difficult to get out. Until now, your father and I are still trapped in it. A helpless expression appeared on Luo Qingxuan's face. Lin Sun didn't feel strange because he had already seen that Luo Qingxuan in front of him was just a manifestation of willpower, not her real body. Fortunately, there's always a way out. A few years ago, I met a mysterious cultivator in the ruins of creation by chance. It was with his help that I was able to bring this bronze box, which contained a wisp of my will, out of the ruins of creation and hand it over to Elder Lu. When she spoke up to hear, Luo Qingxuan revealed a smile. It's precisely because of this that we finally had the chance to meet. Even though it's only the energy of our will, it can transform into a memory. When we're truly reunited one day, this memory will be obtained by my main body at the first possible moment. Lin Sun also felt lucky in his heart. Otherwise, he didn't dare to imagine when he would be able to see his mother again. After that, he thought of a question. Mother, do you know who that mysterious cultivator is? Why didn't you ask him to take you and father out of the ruins of creation? Luo Qingjin replied, It's impossible. At that time, your father and I were trapped in a secret realm formed by a space-time barrier. Even with the help of that mysterious fellow Taoist, there was nothing we could do. In the end, we had to pay a huge price to deliver the bronze box. Lin Sun suddenly understood and said, So, that mysterious cultivator is the benefactor of our family. By the way, do you know his name, Mother? Luo Qingxuan thought for a moment and said, He called himself Ch, so his surname should be Chen. Chen. Lin Sun was shocked. Could it be him? The figure of burning immortal Chen Linkong couldn't help appearing in his mind. In the past, Lin Sun didn't pay attention to how mysterious Chen Linkong was. But when he learned that Chen Linkong had helped Xia Ji in the last day impasse with Golden Cicada and had seen through the power of the law of fate in Xia Ji's body, he knew that Chen Linkong was by no means an ordinary mighty figure. In fact, it was obvious that Golden Cicada was once praised by the master of the square inch as higher than the sky, and Chen Linkong could travel with Golden Cicada. How could such a person be simple? According to my speculation, it was he who found old Lu that made the bronze box fall into your hands. Speaking of which, he is indeed the benefactor of our family, Luo Qingxuan said. Lin Sun was stunned for a while and suddenly asked, What about Master Lu? Since he is still alive, why didn't he meet me directly? Why did he give the bronze box to the Xian family and let them give it to me? Luo Qingxuan said, He was worried that you would do something rash like your uncle after knowing the truth. It's not a test that you can break the seal on the bronze box within 100 years. If you can't break the seal on the bronze box within 100 years, it means that you are not strong enough to face the truth. In this case, not knowing the truth is the best protection for you. At least, you won't do something that worries me and old Lu, such as going to the Luo family to take revenge. Lin Sun frowned. Even so, why doesn't Master Lu want to meet me? He was really puzzled. Luo Qingxuan said, It's not that he doesn't want to see you, but he has been instructed by the Master of Mind Mountain to not get involved in your affairs. Otherwise, it will affect your cultivation. Lin Sun was shocked. Master Lu has met my master? It should be so, Luo Qingxuan said. After a long silence, Lin Sun said, Mother, can you tell me something about Master Lu? Luo Qingxuan nodded and said with reminiscence, Old Lu has been with me since I was very young. It turned out that a long time ago, Luo Tongtian, the master of Tongtian, brought Lu Boya back to the Luo family after a trip. It was also at that time that Lu Boya became a protector of the lineal descendants of the Luo family. He had accompanied Luo Tongtian to travel all over the world, watched Luo Xiao, Luo Qingxuan's father, grow up and guarded Luo Qingxuan for countless years. In the Luo family, no one knew his origin except Luo Tongtian. It was not until later that Luo Qingxuan learned the truth from Lu Boya. Lu Boya didn't belong to this era. He was a disciple of an ancient talisman Taoism sect in the last era. During the destruction of the era, because of an accident, he encountered the 5 signs of decay and almost perished. Even if he was lucky enough to survive the last era, only a strand of his incomplete soul remained, and he was trapped in an extremely dangerous forbidden area. At that time, Luo Tongtian, the master of Tongtian, accidentally broke into this forbidden place, rescued the remnant soul of Lu Boya, and rebuilt his Taoist body, which was tantamount to giving him a new lease of life. From then on, Lu Boya became a member of the Luo family. Knowing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp, thinking of the evil god Dishi and Wushuang, the spirit of order, who had also encountered the 5 signs of decay. It turns out that Master Lu is also a strong man of the last era, he murmured, feeling very surprised and incredible. Where is Master Lu now? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Luo Qingxuan said, "This is what I want to tell you next. Master Lu has been investigating the news of your grandfather Luo Xiao and uncle Luo Qingheng these years. He should be in the 6th heaven now." Lin Sun's eyes lit up. The 6th heaven? Doesn't this mean that I will see Master Lu soon? Luo Qingxuan said with emotion. On the first day when Master Lu entered the Luo family, he swore that in this life, he would not touch a blade of grass, a tree or a soldier of the Luo family, let alone intervene in the affairs of the Luo family. This is the bottom line he adhered to and the promise he made to his grandfather Luo Tongtian. Otherwise, with the power of Master Lu, it would be impossible for Luo Chong to usurp the position of patriarch. After hearing this, Lin Sun didn't know what to say for a while. Did he say that Master Lu was pedantic? But without his help, his mother and uncle might not have been able to escape from the Luo family at all. Moreover, when he was a child, he was also saved by Master Lu. Even the spiritual tattoo inheritance he had was taught by Master Lu. I'm telling you this not to complain, but to tell you that even if you go to the 6th heaven, don't touch the bottom line of Master Lu. Luo Qingxuan said seriously. Lin Sun nodded. I understand. Luo Qingxuan said, now that you have opened the bronze box, there is no need to hide some things from you. I once made an agreement with Master Lu that as long as you can open the bronze box within 100 years, I will give you the Sword of Fate. In this way, you will have the opportunity to go to the ruins of fate in the future. The Sword of Fate. Lin Sun was excited and indescribable excitement surged in his heart. This undoubtedly meant that he had the possibility to see his parents. But the next moment, Luo Qingxuan said, however, I suggest that you don't go to the ruins of fate now. Although your father and I are trapped in it, our lives are not in danger. And with your current cultivation, I am afraid that even if you go to the ruins of fate, you will not be able to see us. On the contrary, it is your uncle and grandfather who worry me the most, so I think she was a little embarrassed to say it. Luo Qingxuan felt a little apologetic to ask her son to do something when they just met for the first time. Lin Sun said with a smile, Mother, I originally planned to go to the 6th heaven. Before I go to the ruins of fate, I will meet Master Lu first and learn about my uncle and grandfather. If necessary, I will also go to the Luo family. If Master Lu can't intervene, I will solve the problem. A touch of coldness flashed in his eyes. Sooner, you can't be impulsive. Luo Qingxuan was a little nervous and said, with your current cultivation, you are no match for the elders of the Luo family. Even if the Luo family has declined, its foundation is not comparable to that of the ordinary immortal emperor families. You, Lin Sun said with a smile, I understand, Mother. I am not a child. I will not be as impulsive as you said. Luo Qingxuan was stunned for a moment and seemed to have a lot of feelings. She said softly, You don't understand at all. In every mother's heart, no matter how old and how capable the child is, he is still a child who needs to be warned and worried. P.S. Today's 2 chapters cover some of the holes in the previous one, so the information is a little large. Please read it carefully. Chapter 2701. In the eyes of parents, no matter how old their children were and how high their achievements were, they were still their children. There were always endless reminders and worries. In the eyes of Luo Qingxuan at this moment, Lin Sun was touched. After a while, he said, "Mother, don't worry. I won't do anything I'm not sure about." Luo Qingxuan smiled. When she was about to say something, her figure suddenly trembled. Light and shadow flowed and became illusory as if she would disappear at any time. Lin Sun's heart tightened. He realized that Luo Qingxuan's willpower was about to collapse. Soon, the sword of creation is within that wooden hairpin. Take it out. If you encounter a matter of life and death, then utilize all your strength to activate this sword, and you'll be able to arrive at the ruins of creation. Remember, you must not act rashly, Luo Qingxuan said quickly. But her figure had turned into nothingness and disappeared in the void, while her words were still echoing. There was only the rising and falling ocean. The sky was high and the sea was wide. Lin Sun felt a sense of loss in his heart for no reason. After a while, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. This meeting was too short after all. There were still many doubts in his heart that he hadn't asked, but now he could only bury them in the deepest part of his heart. "Mother, I'll definitely go to the ruins of fate to find you," Lin Sun murmured. His eyes moved and fell on the bronze box, where a simple and elegant wooden hairpin was placed quietly. He reached out his hand to take out the wooden hairpin, only to find that it was heavy as if it was carrying a mountain. Lin Sun knew that the wooden hairpin was a spatial treasure. When he probed it with his divine sense, he saw a sword floating in it. The sword was 2 feet and 3 inches long and less than 2 fingers wide. Its blade was simple and unadorned, and its body was illusory and transparent. Occasionally, it would reflect magnificent and colorful light like a flash of flowing light. The Sword of Fate. This sword once helped Luo Qingxuan break the forbidden power of order controlled by the nameless Supreme Emperor, and it possessed mysterious and unpredictable power. But more importantly, this sword was a key to the ruins of fate. Lin Sun looked at it for a moment and carefully put away the wooden hairpin. Then he exhaled a long breath of turbid air and drove the boat under his feet to the distance of the blue sea. The meeting with Luo Qingxuan solved many doubts in Lin Sun's mind, but it also gave birth to many doubts. For example, if Master Lu was so powerful, why was he seriously injured by the Star Destroyer in the lower bound? One had to know that Star Yen was merely an emperor ancestor. Moreover, even though the laws of the heavens and earth in the lower realm were extremely terrifying, pressuring terrifying figures like the Du So and the old priest to the point that they could only live in seclusion, correspondingly, the power of the Star Destroyer was greatly restricted. It was strange that Master Lu was wounded under such circumstances. "I'll know the answer when I meet Master Lu." On the vast blue sea, Lin Sun drove a small boat and soon disappeared. High up in the sky, in the vast and ancient starry sky, countless stars connected and formed a mysterious path of stars. Who knew how many terrifying figures were hiding near this star passageway? There were more than 10 Undying Realm experts. All of them were cultivators from the forces of Lin Sun's enemies, and they'd gathered together now to set up a monstrous trap. Naturally, it was to kill Lin Sun. It's been half a year since Lin Sun disappeared from the 4th heaven. According to his usual style, he should have shown his tracks long ago. But now, there's no news at all. This is too strange. A tender voice sounded. The one who spoke was an Undying Realm expert. He looked like an 8 or 9-year-old child, innocent, but his eyes were surging with the vicissitudes of time. Many people shivered when they heard this voice. Nanyuan Star, an Undying Realm expert from the Nan clan, one of the 4 Eastern Imperial clans. At the same time, he was also one of the most prestigious Undying Realm experts present. There's been no movement from the Wind Smoke Academy. In my opinion, This child has already sensed the danger and doesn't dare to show his tracks anymore. In another area, chaotic aura filled the air. The figure of a woman in black was faintly discernible, cold and frightening. This was also an Undying Realm expert, called Chu Wuyen, from the Chu clan, one of the 4 Eastern imperial clans. Hearing this, the atmosphere was silent. The experts hiding around the star passageway felt an indescribable sense of powerlessness. So many Undying Realm experts gathered together, yet they couldn't do anything to the descendant of Fang Siyuan? It's been half a year. Among these powerhouses, which one of them wasn't a noble existence from an Undying Realm expert? But now, just to kill a common enemy, they had no choice but to endure and wait patiently. This feeling was undoubtedly too difficult to bear. If this child doesn't show up, do we have to wait here forever? Someone couldn't help but ask. No one answered. Nanyuan Star, Chu Wuyen, and the other Undying Realm experts all had gloomy expressions on their faces. If they could capture Lin Sun's tracks, who would be willing to wait here passively? If the Donghuang clan is willing to use the power of the dustless divine mirror to help, we only need to sweep it lightly and we can instantly capture his tracks. Nanyuan Star's tone was filled with helplessness. Unfortunately, this treasure is the Donghuang clan's treasure. They won't easily take it out of the 8th heaven, dustless divine mirror. An incredible divine treasure. Rumor has it that through this mirror, one can see everything one wants to see. It's useless to say this now. It's certain that this child must be in the 5th heaven, and his whereabouts are erratic. Ordinary means of searching for him are useless. For now, there is no other way but to wait. Chu Wuyen took a deep breath and said, I even suspect that this child has already noticed our layout. Obviously, he intends to waste time with us. In other words, this battle depends on who can endure it. Everyone's heart became more and more uncomfortable. Continue to waste time like this? How much time will it take? Who has so much time to waste? There are only a little more than 9 years left from the 10-year period of the ancestral court of the Yuan religion. I don't have so much time to wait here. Nanyuan Star frowned. The ancestral court of the Yuan religion is a big event. As an immortal of the Nan clan in the 7th heaven, in Nanyuan Star's heart, the matter of killing Lin Sun is far from being comparable to the matter of the ancestral court of the Yuan religion. Among the people present, there are definitely many big shots who have such thoughts. For a time, everyone had different thoughts. They were angry and helpless. Lin Sun has already restrained too much of their strength and energy, but so far, they still can't do anything to him. Who wouldn't be aggrieved? Wait a little longer. I don't believe that this child won't leave any traces. Chu Wuyen's murderous intent was soaring. Everyone knew that this was the only way. However, when they thought about how they had to continue hiding here, they didn't feel good about it. It was also at this time that people discovered that the descendant of Fang Siyuan, who didn't die outside the ruins of the gods, has now grown to the point that even they feel a headache. They didn't dare to imagine what kind of disaster it would cause if they let such a character step into the immortal level. Time passed, and a year passed in a hurry. The 5th heaven was calm, without any wind or waves, no disasters, and the world was peaceful. This abnormal scene was completely beyond people's imagination. As cultivators of the 5th heaven, they also reacted at this time. They thought that Lin Sun was obviously aware of the danger of the situation, and it was very likely that he had gone dormant, and wouldn't show up in a short period of time. The group of immortal emperor powerhouses lying in ambush near the Smoke Wind Academy and the Star Path was simply suffering in this year, and their patience was slowly wearing away. It was unknown how many people were cursing Lin Sun in their hearts, and there was no lack of curses. Some flustered and exasperated characters even angrily shouted to the outside world, using extremely insulting words to provoke and stimulate Lin Sun, trying to lure him out. But it didn't produce the slightest effect. Lin Sun seemed to have evaporated from the world. No one knew where he was hiding, and no one knew what he was doing during this period of time. Wind Parasol Academy. A second-rate force in the fifth heaven, far from being comparable to the Smoke Wind Academy. But in the eyes of the world's cultivators, the Wind Parasol Academy can be called a great force in the fifth heaven. In this world, the top people and forces are in the minority. The billions of living beings living in this world are the main body of the world. The Wind Parasol Academy, which the immortal Emperor clans didn't take seriously at all, is a holy land in the hearts of the world's cultivators. The city closest to the Wind Parasol Academy was called Wind Parasol City. For more than a year, Lin Sun had been staying in this city. During the day, he would walk around the city, experiencing the various forms of the mortal world, and at night, he would meditate and comprehend the mysteries of the great Tao. No one knew that this young man who liked to wander around the city was the famous, ruthless Lin in the eternal true world. It's been almost 2 years. On this day, Lin Sun walked out of the courtyard he bought with a lot of money and looked up at the sky. No one knew what he thought of, but he smiled silently. After meeting Luo Qingxuan, his heart became calmer, and he was no longer in a hurry to go to the sixth heaven. He knew that as long as he was alive, his enemies would only be more anxious than him. Withdrawing his gaze from the sky, Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and walked leisurely out of Wind Parasol City. He strolled along the mountains, and soon arrived in front of a beautiful mountain range. This was the place where the Wind Parasol Academy was based, and its gate was built in the depths of this mountain. Lin Sun stood under an ancient red maple tree, whose leaves looked like they were burning, quietly looking into the distance. He didn't have to wait too long. In his divine sense, he saw Ling Qingxue walk out of the gate of the Wind Parasol Academy. Her black hair was tied up by a golden ribbon, and she was wearing a white robe that was whiter than snow. Her black hair was tied up by a golden ribbon. They walked side by side towards the mountains in the distance. P.S. Today is Goldfish's birthday. She'll have dinner with her family tonight, and then she'll come back to write the second update. Chapter 2702. Corrected a small bug. The Chu Wuyan in the previous chapter should be Li Wuyan. In the Sea of Clouds. Ling Qingxue said, "Little Shi, if you want to enter the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, you must have a firm and unsullied Tao heart. In my opinion, although your Tao heart is pure, it lacks experience. You have to rely on yourself to kill demons this time. No matter how great the danger you encounter, I won't interfere. Do you understand?" Little Shi nodded seriously. "I won't let you down, Master." Ling Qingxue said, "It doesn't matter whether you let me down or not. The important thing is not to be disappointed in yourself." While talking, the two had already arrived at a ferocious mountain filled with blood mist. Since ancient times, this has been a place where big demons run amok. Ordinary cultivators, without the company of a master, didn't dare to step even half a step in. For the Windy Tree Academy, this is a natural training ground, an excellent place to train their disciples. Go, kill 10 small demon kings at the early stage of True Sage, and this mission will be considered qualified. Ling Qingxue pointed to the distance and ordered. Little Shi nodded, her figure turned into a divine rainbow, rushing towards the mountain filled with blood mist. Is it too harsh and strict to her? As soon as Little Shi left, Nie Qingrong's figure appeared out of thin air, looking at the place where Little Shi disappeared with some worry. This is what she asked for. Ling Qingxue's beautiful face was filled with a trace of emotion. This girl is full of ambition and regards Brother Lin as a role model. Although she didn't say anything to me, I know that she only hopes that when they meet again in the future, she can get Brother Lin's affirmation, not disappointment. Nie Qingrong was startled and said, "I see. Sister, if Lin Sun didn't leave the fifth heaven, where did he go?" Ling Qingxue couldn't help but ask. It had been more than a year since they separated. About half a year ago, she and Nie Qingrong brought Xiao Shi and left the cave abode that was 10,000 feet below the ice plains. After searching for a long time, they finally settled down in the Wind Tree Academy. Now, like Nye Qingrong, she is an ancestor realm teacher in the Windy Tree Academy. Her status is not low and she is highly regarded. As for Xiaoxi, she was currently only an official disciple, but as long as she broke through to the Sage Realm, she could be selected as a core disciple. It can be said that their current situation is very good, far better than when they were in the first heaven. I don't know, but according to the current news from the fifth heaven, as long as Brother Lin appears, there won't be any danger. As Nye Qingrong spoke, a look of ridicule surfaced in her eyes. On the other hand, the important figures from the immortal emperor clans are probably not having a good time. I can already imagine their helplessness, resentment, and powerlessness. Lung Qingxue couldn't help but smile as she said unhurriedly, "If I were to possess Brother Lin's strength in the future, I'll definitely learn from him. It's fine if I don't cause trouble, but if I do, I'll turn the world upside down." Far away, under the burning maple tree, Lin Sun withdrew his spiritual awareness, smiled, and turned away. Nye Qingrong, Lung Qingxue, and the others didn't know that Lin Sun had come to visit them more than once during this period of time they'd been in the institution. It was just that each time, it didn't disrupt their cultivation lives. Another 2 years passed in a flash. Outside the Star Path, a group of immortal Emperor clan experts had gathered. They were all filled with anger and hatred. If they cultivated behind closed doors, a few years would pass in a blink of an eye. But the point is that they're not cultivating now, they're waiting for their target every day and night. This is undoubtedly too hard to bear, and their patience is about to run out. I can't wait anymore. There will be a day to deal with this little beast. On this day, Nanyuan Xing couldn't help but leave angrily. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. She left just like that? Seeing this, Li Wuyan, who had long been impatient, couldn't help but say, "Everyone, take care. If Lin Sun appears in the future, I will come again." Her voice was still echoing in the air, but she had already disappeared. Immediately afterward, some other immortal emperors left one after another, unable to bear the feeling of passively waiting. Soon, only a few immortal existences from the sixth and fifth heaven were left in the battlefield. They were all staring at each other, hesitating. If they continue to wait, once Lin Sun doesn't appear, it will undoubtedly be a waste of time and energy, and in the end, it will be a waste of time and energy. But if they just leave like this, they are unwilling. After all, they have been waiting for several years. Who would be willing to return without any results? Nanyuan Xing and Li Wuyan can just leave, because they are from the seventh heaven. In a short time, Lin Sun can't threaten them and the forces behind them. But for the other immortal emperor clans, if Lin Sun enters the sixth heaven, he will pose a great threat to the forces behind them. Fuck. Some people couldn't help but curse, their voices shaking the starry sky, obviously angry. If this kid doesn't appear, it's not a solution for us to waste time. In my opinion, if he really dares to enter the sixth heaven, we can gather our strength and kill him. Someone said solemnly. But if he enters the sixth heaven, that little monster will repeat his old tricks and destroy everything around him. At that time, we might be able to kill him, but which force can withstand his torment? Someone said with an ugly expression. While talking, many people quietly left, not intending to wait any longer. If Lin Sun would rather stay in the fifth heaven for the rest of his life, would they also waste their lives? Obviously not. As the number of cultivators near the star path decreased, the powerhouses who originally planned to wait for a while couldn't help but waver. Lin Sun was completely unaware of this. Fengwu City. In a courtyard, Lin Sun slowly woke up from meditation. The peak of the Zhu Xie Emperor Ancestor realm. Feeling the changes in his body, Lin Sun felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. The fifth heaven is indeed extraordinary. Whether it is the laws of heaven and earth or the chaotic spiritual energy, everything can meet his cultivation needs. For example, when he was in the first heaven, it took him several years to rebuild his cultivation path and repair his injuries. When he recovered to his peak state, his cultivation was only at the peak of the early Emperor Ancestor realm. But from the first heaven to the fifth heaven, it only took him 6 or 7 years to break through to the peak of the late Emperor Ancestor realm. This kind of progress is undoubtedly amazing. After all, the higher the cultivation base, the more difficult it is to advance further. Some emperors may not be able to break through to the next realm in tens of thousands of years. Compared to this, it can be seen how fast Lin Sun's cultivation is breaking through. In other words, he has reached the peak of the 9th level of the Emperor realm. If he goes further, it will be the immortal path. After putting away the Hongmeng tree rooted in the courtyard and removing the restriction formation around the courtyard, Lin Sun went out and walked towards the bustling street as usual. Every time he did that, he would look at the sky and wonder how hard the enemies who were lying in ambush near the star passages must be waiting for him. Then, his mood would become inexplicably happy. Not long ago, Lin Sun heard that many immortal emperor clans stationed near the Fengyan Academy have evacuated one after another. This matter even caused a sensation in the fifth heaven, because it means that those immortal emperor clans no longer have the patience to waste time with Lin Sun. But some people also think that this is the immortal emperor clan's strategy of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. They seem to have evacuated, but in fact, they are secretly ambushing Lin Sun. As long as Lin Sun dares to appear, he will definitely be killed. In this regard, Lin Sun laughed it off. He didn't care at all, and didn't intend to pay attention to it. As early as in the 2nd and 4th heaven, he killed countless lackeys. He is very clear that this kind of counterattack may anger the enemy, but it will cause little damage to them. Under such circumstances, to him, whether or not to go to the Fengyan Academy to start another massacre was not a matter of importance. He really is not in a hurry. The more the enemy can't sit still, the more flustered and exasperated they are, the more favorable the situation is for him. While strolling, Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he noticed something. At this moment, on the bustling street in the distance, a white-haired old man wearing a wide-sleeved black robe looked at Lin Sun from afar. This old man is Luo Yunshan. The black-robed old man spoke. Although there were many figures, his voice rang clearly in Lin Sun's ears. Surnamed Luo. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, and then immediately recovered his composure. He knew clearly that the reason why the old man could find him was probably the same as Luo Ling, who he met in the vast 1,000-battle domain. He used some secret method or treasure that could sense the talent of the devouring abyss. Can we find a place to talk? Don't worry, this time I come alone. Luo Yunshan looked calm and invited Lin Sun. Lin Sun turned around and left. Luo Yunshan frowned and said, "My little friend, won't you give me face? Don't you want to talk? Then let's go outside the city." Lin Sun said without looking back. Outside the city? Luo Yunshan was greatly surprised. After thinking about it, he felt relieved. After all, there were many people in Fengwu City. If there was a dispute, it would alarm the whole city immediately. This was bound to make Lin Sun's situation become unfavorable. On the contrary, he didn't have to worry about this when he left the city and came to the wilderness. But isn't this boy worried that I will suddenly attack him? Luo Yunshan's eyes flashed. Immediately, he agreed happily and followed Lin Sun to go outside the city. Among the mountains and rivers, Lin Sun landed on one of the peaks. He turned his head and looked at Luo Yunshan, who followed closely, and said indifferently, "Now, are you sure you want to fight directly or have a chat?" Luo Yunshan was silent for a moment and said with a smile, "If you can have a chat, there is no need to fight." Lin Sun said, "What do you want to talk about?" Chapter 2703. Another way to solve it? Lin Sun smiled sarcastically. "Do you think it's possible?" He had already met his mother Luo Qingxuan and understood all kinds of grievances in the past. He really couldn't think of any other way to solve the hatred between him and the Luo family. Luo Yunshan sighed and said, "Anyway, if there is a glimmer of hope, I will try my best to fight for it." After a pause, he said, "In fact, you should also know that if we want to kill you, we don't have to wait until now. We could have found you with those immortal emperors a few years ago, but we didn't do so because, after all, half of the blood of the Luo family flows in your body." Lin Sun said, "So, I have to thank you for not killing me?" Luo Yunshan seemed a little helpless and sighed, "I said this just to tell you that I came with sincerity." Lin Sun was expressionless. "Don't talk nonsense, get to the point." Luo Yunshan nodded and said, "When I came here, the Patriarch promised that as long as you change your surname to Luo and work for the Luo family wholeheartedly, the position of the Patriarch of the Luo family will be handed over to you. This is also a compensation to your mother and your uncle. I believe that you should understand how important this promise is. It is enough to let you hold the power of an immortal emperor and become a famous figure in the eternal world." His eyes were sincere and full of eagerness. "This is a rare opportunity. I hope you will think about it. As long as you agree, not only can you get out of the fifth heaven, you can also take charge of the power of the Luo family in the future. At that time, even if you go to seek revenge on your enemies, you will have the whole Luo family to support you." But Lin Sun seemed to feel it was ridiculous. He sneered and said, "Do you think the previous hatred can be resolved by the position of the Patriarch? Or do you think that I, Lin Sun, want the Patriarch position of the Luo family?" Without waiting for Luo Yunshan to speak, Lin Sun continued, "Let me guess, Luo family has probably realized that if you don't find a way to deal with me, Luo family will be greatly threatened in the future, and it is very likely that Luo family will pay an extremely heavy price for it. So Luo family can only adopt such a delaying strategy, right?" Luo Yunshan's expression was slightly uncomfortable as he said, "It can't be said to be a delaying tactic, but the Luo clan has realized that if they continue fighting like this, both sides will suffer immeasurable losses. Instead of causing both sides to suffer losses, why not turn hostility into friendship?" Lin Sun said noncommittally, "According to what you said, as long as I bow my head, change my surname, and serve the Luo family, I can take over the position of the Patriarch of Luo family?" Luo Yunshan nodded. Patriarch personally agreed to it. Lin Sun smiled faintly. "Let's not talk about whether I can really become the Patriarch of Luo family at that time. Don't you worry that after I become the Patriarch, I will imprison all of you like what you did to the main branch of Luo family?" Luo Yunshan's eyes narrowed, and he immediately sighed. "I believe that as long as Luo family expresses enough sincerity, you won't have the heart to do that." Lin Sun said, "What if I have the heart to do that?" Luo Yunshan's expression was uncertain. After a long time, he said with a wry smile, "It's not easy for me to speculate about what will happen in the future." Lin Sun nodded and said, "If this is what you want to talk about, I might as well tell you. No matter whether the Luo family has ulterior motives or not, I can only say that you think. You are really dreaming." The murder of Lin family was still vivid in Lin Sun's mind. Over the years, whether he was in the ancient Desolation territory, the starry ancient road, the dark world, the deity Phoenix bloodline, or the true dragon world, the pursuit of the Luo clan was simply like a ghost that lingered on endlessly. Even when he arrived in the Kiliakosm battle domain, even when he entered the eternal world, the pursuit still continued. How could the oppression and persecution they had suffered along the way, as well as the bloodshed and hatred they had experienced along the way be resolved by such a ridiculous condition? Luo family was really dreaming. What made Lin Sun feel the most ridiculous was that in the eyes of Luo family, the position of Patriarch could settle all the past grievances. What did they think of him, as in their hearts? Lin Sun's words made Luo Yunshan's expression slightly stiff and embarrassed. As a senior at the immortal realm of Luo family, he had already lowered his status by coming here personally. Even if he was ridiculed by Lin Sun, He had to suppress his anger and ignore it in order to show his sincerity. But in the end, he was still rejected like this. This caused the space between Luo Yunshan's brows to be unable to help but be suffused with gloominess, and his expression became cold and indifferent as he said, "Lin Sun, I have to admit that with your current cultivation, ordinary people are utterly unable to do anything to you, and it's even to the extent that you possess trump cards to go against eternal figures. However," at this point, Luo Yunshan's eyes revealed a hint of disdain that could not be suppressed. "Don't overestimate yourself. No matter how much the Luo family has declined, if they use all their means to deal with you, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand it. Don't talk to me about the sect behind you. Ever since the master of the Square Cun suffered a disaster in the ninth heaven, who in the eternal world doesn't know that the descendants of the Square Cun are already a group of wandering ghosts? It is true that outside the god's realm, whether it is your martial uncle Kong Ju or your senior brother Ling Xuanzi, they both displayed unparalleled killing methods, but in the end, Kong Ju was seriously injured by the sword of judgment of the eighth heaven's strongest Wang family, and Ling Xuanzi was even killed. Lin Sun's heart trembled. Fourth senior brother really died? Over the years, he had also been inquiring about what happened outside the god's relic, but the information he obtained was very vague. Some people said that fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi had fallen. Some people said that at the last moment, Ling Xuanzi was rescued by a mysterious person, and even the terrifying immortal giants of the eighth heaven couldn't stop him. But no matter what, no one could really determine whether Ling Xuanzi was dead or alive. But now, Luo Yunshan said with certainty that fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi had fallen. How could Lin Sun accept this? Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and said expressionlessly, "Are you done?" Luo Yunshan obviously saw that Lin Sun's mood was not right. He couldn't help but sneer. "No, it's not over yet, because you don't understand the cruelty of the world. It is true that there are still many survivors of the Square Cun mountain in the eternal world, but do you think that they, who have long been targeted by the immortal giants of the eighth heaven, can help you? I might as well be frank. It won't take many years for the immortal giants of the eighth heaven to encircle and kill the survivors of Square Cun mountain one by one. You can think of me as an alarmist. It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not, but don't you find it strange that the descendants of the Square Cun mountain didn't come to help you after you caused such a huge ruckus in the sixth heaven of the eternal world?" His words were solemn, cold, and filled with an oppressive aura. But what made Luo Yunshan frown was that Lin Sun's expression didn't change at all. He was terrifyingly calm, as if he didn't care about this at all. "Even if we don't mention the Square Cun mountain, if we want to destroy you at all costs, the Luo family has all kinds of methods. For example, if I want to, do you think you can still escape?" Luo Yunshan's expression was dignified. The talent of devouring the abyss is indeed very terrifying, because the Luo family knows the power of this talent the best. Since I dared to come here alone, I naturally have the confidence to suppress you. As he spoke, he raised his eyes slightly, looked at the sky, and said, "What's more, if a battle breaks out here, the experts lying in ambush near the outer space will probably rush here as soon as possible, right?" At the end of his words, his expression was full of disdain and coldness, and he said, "I'm not saying all this to intimidate you. I just want to tell you that the Luo family really wants to give you a chance. You'd better think about it carefully." Lin Sun was silent for a moment, then he suddenly smiled and said, "You should be done this time, right?" Luo Yunshan was stunned, as if he couldn't believe it. He had already said it so clearly. Could it be that this boy still intended to be stubborn? "What do you mean?" he asked. Lin Sun said indifferently, "Don't you understand what I mean? If you're done, I'll send you on your way." Lin Sun's words fell lightly. Instantly, Obscure fluctuations of the energy of restrictions silently surged into appearance within this expanse of mountains and rivers, and the continuous mountains that rose and fell swiftly became extremely blurry. The world seemed to have fallen into the eternal night, and it was covered by an obscure restrictive power. Luo Yunshan's pupils suddenly shrank, and he was keenly aware that the connection with the outside world seemed to be cut off. It was as if he was isolated from the world and fell into a cage-like world. However, he didn't panic. After looking at it for a moment, he said, "This kind of restrictive power can be called miraculous, and even I couldn't notice it at the first time. However, I'm afraid you don't understand the power of the immortal level at all. Do you really think you can escape by relying on this formation?" A cold expression appeared on his face. Before he came here, he had already expected that Lin Sun wouldn't bow his head so easily, and this accident was also within his expectations. Boom! As he spoke, Luo Yunshan waved his sleeve, and a dazzling immortal light emerged like a tide and enveloped Lin Sun. But strangely, Lin Sun's figure vanished like a bubble. The eternal light of the Tao spread out, and the entire grand formation that covered the heavens and the earth shook violently. But it wasn't destroyed. Luo Yunshan's heart trembled, and he realized that something was wrong. These years, I've been living in Fengwu City, and in order to arrange this formation, I've spent almost half of my belongings. Lin Sun's emotional voice sounded in this world. However, you're right. Such a formation can't threaten an immortal figure like you, but I'm afraid you can't get out of this formation in a short time. Boom! A pair of suns and moons condensed from the laws of restriction suddenly surged into appearance within this dark world of restrictions, and they descended from the sky. Then, countless stars flashed and whistled in the void, and they covered Luo Yunshan in an overwhelming manner. Each star was surging with an unpredictable and terrifying aura. Chapter 2704. In the dark world of restrictions, the sun and moon sank while the stars fell. It just seemed like the end of the world had arrived. Luo Yunshan raised his head slightly while divine light surged in his eyes, and a shapeless and terrifying imposing aura stretched out from his body. Bang! When the descending sun and moon hadn't even approached him when they exploded into pieces in the sky above him, and they transformed into surging torrents of Tao markings that swept towards the surroundings. Along with Luo Yunshan stretching out his hand and grabbing, the stars that whistled and surged throughout the sky suddenly trembled slightly, and then they froze in midair before exploding into pieces in unison. At that instant, it was like countless dazzling and blazing fireworks had bloomed. The entire dark world of restrictions started shaking along with it. Luo Yunshan stood on the spot with a composed expression as he said indifferently, "Lin Sun, don't take my Luo clan's sincerity as benevolence towards you. If you continue to refuse to realize your errors, then I might have no choice but to eliminate you from the world. The show has only just begun. Don't be impatient." Lin Sun's voice resounded. Suddenly, the grand formation roiled as wind, lightning, earth, and fire surged into appearance. Subsequently, a myriad of sword lights surged into appearance amidst rumbling, and they formed an ocean of swords that bathed in the might of wind, lightning, earth, and fire. Clang! 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 Luo Yunshan frowned while his eyes were suffused with a wisp of piercingly cold, killing intent. He suddenly took a deep breath and suddenly flicked his sleeve. Bang! The terrifying eternal laws transformed into a storm that smashed over. The heavens and the earth shook as countless strands of sword chi exploded and dispersed. However, there were more than a myriad of strands of sword chi, and they covered the heavens and the earth as they charged forward wave after wave. The might they emanated was terrifying to the extreme, and any martial ancestor realm expert would probably be unable to resist for an instant. Even though an eternal figure like Luo Yunshan wasn't afraid, he was unable to completely deal with the attacks that came from all directions in a short period of time, and his brows couldn't help but knit together even more tightly. He suddenly let out a cold grunt while his sleeve fluttered, and his hair fluttered while his entire body seemed to have become boundlessly tall. His entire body seethed with violet eternal divine flames, and his imposing aura had become terrifying to the extreme. Go! He stretched out his hand and formed a seal, causing countless strands of eternal radiance to condense into a disk that was like the sun, and it rumbled as it smashed down in midair. The world trembled and the power of countless restrictions surged. The purple immortal energy raged, as if it was going to break the world. Lin Sun, who was hiding in the dark, narrowed his eyes. It's not that he hasn't fought with immortals before. For example, when the first heaven fell into the eternal Forbidden Land, he killed Zhu Yin, an immortal from the Zhu clan. But at that time, Zhu Yin was already seriously injured and dying, which gave Lin a chance. Compared to him, Luo Yunshan, who was at his peak state, was undoubtedly extremely terrifying, and the strength he emitted with every single move he made possessed an all-powerful crushing might. Boom! The purple sun-like wheel swept out, rampaging between heaven and earth, bringing great destructive power to the entire formation. Countless restrictive powers were threatened. Not daring to hesitate any longer, Lin rushed out at once. Buzz! The abyssal sword cauldron flowed with billions of rays of light and soared into the sky, bathing Lin Sun's tall figure. Humph, you still won't give up? A trace of disdain flashed through Luo Yunshan's eyes as he pointed his finger out. Clang! Amidst the earth-shattering collision sound, the abyssal sword cauldron shook and was almost sent flying. Under the impact, Lin Sun's chi and blood also surged. But he did not retreat and continued to charge forward, releasing the full extent of his cultivation. It was like the abyssal sword cauldron was moving horizontally, disdainful and powerful. Luo Yunshan could not help but be surprised. The power of his finger could easily kill any Emperor Realm cultivator, but now Lin Sun had neutralized it just like that? You want to fight against the immortal energy with the body of an emperor? In the entire eternal true world, I'm afraid there is no one who dares to overestimate themselves like you. Luo Yunshan let out a cold laugh and attacked. Boom! The earth shook and the sky trembled. In an instant, the two had already fought dozens of times, causing the entire restrictive formation to shake. What made Luo Yunshan frown was that even though he had used his true power, he still could not take down Lin Sun in a head-on battle. Lin Sun was indeed in a very difficult situation and was at a complete disadvantage. He was suppressed to the point that he could not even lift his head, but he was not injured. Instead, he repeatedly turned danger into safety. This caused Luo Yunshan to be unable to calm down. The Zhu Xian great ancestor was indeed very heaven-defying, but he was not heaven-defying to the point that he could fight against an immortal. This was something that everyone knew since ancient times. But now, Lin Sun could fight against him in a head-on battle with this level of cultivation. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely cause an uproar in the world. This kid is really as monstrous as the rumors say. If I can be used by the Luo family, how good would that be? Luo Yunshan sighed in his heart. Although many thoughts flashed through his mind, Luo Yunshan's attacks became even fiercer. He released the immortal technique he possessed and continuously gave Lin Sun a fatal pressure. Not long after, Lin Sun suffered an extremely great impact and could not help but cough out blood. It was also at this moment that he deeply realized how monstrous the power of an immortal was. Even if he had reached the peak of the Zhu Xian great ancestor realm, even if he used the abyssal sword cauldron to fight with all his strength, he was still in a situation where he was constantly being suppressed. It was extremely dangerous. If you don't lower your head, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Luo Yunshan's expression was indifferent. In the previous conversation with Lin Sun, a lot of anger had already arisen in his heart, but he had been suppressing it. Seeing that Lin Sun was still so thick-headed, Luo Yunshan's attacks became more and more powerful, overbearing, and ruthless. You talk too much nonsense. A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's eyes. He suddenly displayed the forbidden passing technique, and a vast expanse of white light of time suddenly spread out. Almost at the same time, from the abyssal sword cauldron, a magnificent and dazzling gray flame of order poured out and covered Luo Yunshan. Boom! That area fell into a terrifying torrent of destruction. A rain of light splashed and divine light rose. Lin Sun had already avoided it at the first moment. But the next moment, his eyes narrowed. In the distance, as the rain of light dissipated, Luo Yunshan's figure was revealed. His clothes were ragged, and his body was burned with many shocking scars. Even his beard and hair were burnt. He looked incomparably miserable. But he didn't die. A flying knife, which seemed to be carved out of crystal jade, floated in front of him, filled with a mysterious aura. Faintly, there was a wisp of time aura diffusing from it, which made people's hearts palpitate. Obviously, Luo Yunshan had relied on this flying knife to block the power of the extinction forbidden divine ability. However, it was unavoidable for him to be injured by the flames of order. The forbidden passing technique. They are right. You have already awakened the power of the second stage of the devouring abyss. Luo Yunshan's face was livid, and his eyes were frightening. Unfortunately, in front of the blade of light and shadow left by the Lord of Tongtian, the forbidden passing technique is in vain. The blade of light and shadow, left by the Lord of Tongtian. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems that you really came prepared." Luo Yunshan's expression was grim. "Since you know this, why do you still struggle? Do you want to suppress you before you are willing to bow down?" Clang! In front of him, the blade of light and shadow suddenly disappeared. The next moment, it appeared in front of Lin Sun and chopped down. The sharp blade was covered with ripples of time. It was incredibly fast. With a puff, blood splashed. Even though Lin Sun tried his best to dodge, he was still injured. There was a deep wound on his shoulder, which was so deep that the bone could be seen. The skin was torn and the flesh was torn. Under the influence of the terrible chi of the saber, he groaned in pain. "Although I don't have the talent of the devouring abyss, I can control the blade of light and shadow with the immortal law. In this case, what do you have to fight against me?" Luo Yunshan's eyes were full of coldness and contempt. As he spoke, the blade flashed, and the terrible flying knife chopped out again. In a flash, Lin Sun's body was covered with wounds and blood. They were not only superficial wounds, but also the chi of the saber rushed into his body, causing him serious injuries. "Surrender or die." Luo Yunshan stepped forward with a threatening manner, as if he was sure of victory and had power over Lin Sun's life. At this moment, Lin Sun, who was covered with wounds and soaked in blood, suddenly raised his head with a cold smile on his lip. Chi. Strangely, in front of him, a crack in space and time silently appeared. Light and shadow intertwined, outlining a faintly discernible door of space and time. Endless light rained down, and the mysteries of time and space collided, producing a terrifying and boundless devouring aura. Within the spatial door was a boundless darkness that seemed to lead to an abyss. It caused one's soul to feel as if it was being devoured with just a glance. Moreover, as the door surged, it simply seemed as if it wanted to drag the nearby heavens and the earth and everything that existed within it into it. The third stage of the talent, Gate of Exile. At this moment, the blade of light and shadow suddenly appeared out of thin air. As soon as it chopped towards Lin Sun, it was swallowed up by the Gate of Exile and disappeared silently. In the distance, Luo Yunshan's face suddenly changed, and his heart trembled. In his mind, he suddenly lost the connection with the blade of light and shadow, as if this supreme treasure inherited from the Lord of Tongtian had completely disappeared from the world. Before he could react, the Gate of Exile, like a bloody mouth opened in time, shrouded his head. Boom! The boundless and terrifying devouring energy was like a huge hand from the heavens that dragged Luo Yunshan's body into the door of exile. His body and mind were overwhelmed with shock, and his face turned pale. He felt as if his cultivation was being fiercely suppressed. Even though he struggled with all his might, he still couldn't stop himself from being dragged toward the bizarre gate of exile. No! Luo Yunshan roared hoarsely. He was completely panicked, and his whole body was replaced by panic. He couldn't imagine what kind of magic this was. How could it be so terrible? Seeing the gate of exile getting closer and closer, Luo Yunshan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he was about to go crazy. He had never felt so close to death since he started his cultivation. However, to Luo Yunshan's surprise, the strange door actually suddenly collapsed and vanished, and the terrifying devouring power disappeared with it. Luo Yunshan was stunned for a moment, and then an unprecedented ecstasy surged in his heart. He vaguely understood that Lin Sun's strength was not enough to use this forbidden method for a long time. Little bastard! Luo Yunshan roared, and his eyes were full of killing intent. The scene of death just now had completely stimulated him, and he was on a rampage at this moment. However, Lin Sun's figure was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, an indescribable feeling of palpitation surged all over his body. Luo Yunshan, who was furious, subconsciously raised his head and saw the fire of order covering him. That blazing light engulfed his vision and mind. No! Luo Yunshan was scared out of his wits and let out a shrill roar. Boom! Chapter 2705. Dust billowed, the destructive currents spread. Lin Sun breathed heavily for a while, grabbing a handful of pills and medicines and started to crazily eat them. This battle was extremely dangerous, and he also used the death restriction and exiled gate consecutively, causing his energy to be on the verge of drying up. Moreover, his body was covered in wounds, filled with shocking blood-colored blade scars. His entire body was soaked in blood, looking very pitiful. But at this moment Lin Sun laughed, an indescribable joy surged within him. This was probably the first time he killed an undying at his peak state since he started cultivating. Only when he calmed down and thought about the battle before did Lin Sun realize some flaws. The core was that his usage of the exiled gate was lacking. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to use the order flame at the last moment to deal that fatal blow. With my current cultivation, I can at most maintain the door of exile for 3 breaths of time after executing it. Even though it's a short period of time, if I'm able to grasp the opportunity, then it's sufficient to suppress an undying figure into the abyss of absolute nothingness, and it wouldn't be like this time where Luo Yunshan escaped calamity at the last moment, Lin Sun thought. When he was at the initial stage of the Zhu Xian Emperor Ancestor realm, after using the exiled gate, he could only last for 1 breath. Now that he was at the perfection stage of the Zhu Xian Emperor Ancestor realm, when he used this ability, he needed 2 more breaths than before. Don't underestimate this short period of time. If he could grasp the opportunity, he could easily defeat an undying. If I meet an enemy of this level next time, I won't be so passive. Lin Sun took in a deep breath, his eyes filled with disdain. This battle's meaning was far from ordinary. It made him realize the gap between his strength and an undying. But as long as he realized how big the gap was, sooner or later he would be able to make up for it and surpass it. Once his stamina recovered a bit, Lin Sun started to check his spoils. As an undying of the Luo family, the treasures Luo Yunshan had on him were far from ordinary. Just the Dao soldiers imprinted with undying substance, there were 3. Apart from that, there were also some cultivation materials and pills, their value far beyond that of the Emperor realm. And one of the mysterious jade talismans caught Lin Sun's attention. This jade talisman was light violet in color, and it was inscribed with countless laws of lightning that were dense like strands of hair. Its aura was obscure and terrifying. Lin Sun could tell at a glance that this was a secret treasure that borrowed the power of order. It was definitely branded with the 8th grade Earth rank lightning order possessed by the Luo clan. This secret treasure was refined by an immortal of the Luo family, and only the bloodline power of a member of the Luo family could awaken it and borrow it. Even if an outsider obtained this jade talisman, they wouldn't be able to use its power at all. No. My mother, Luo Qingxuan, is from the Luo clan, and I have half of the Skyspan Lord's bloodline running through my veins. If that's the case, then I should be able to control the power of order in the jade token. Lin Sun tried to explore the lavender jade talisman with his spiritual awareness. Instantly, the sound of thunder rumbled in his mind. Endless purple lightning rolled like a thick dragon, giving off an aura that could destroy the world. On the other hand, Lin Sun noticed that the blood in his body was boiling, forming a unique resonance with the order power. It seemed as if so long as he willed it in his heart, then he would be able to release the energy of orders sealed within the jade talisman. It works. Lin Sun didn't probe further. Instead, he withdrew his spiritual awareness and carefully put away the order jade talisman. This treasure could be used as a trump card. It's a pity that the blade of light and shadow was branded with the power of time, and it's a treasure left behind by the Skyspan Lord. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a sense of pity when he thought of the blade of light and shadow that was suppressed in the abyss of despair by the door of exile. With his current strength, he could use the door of exile, but it was almost impossible for him to retrieve the treasure suppressed in the abyss of despair. The reason was that the door of exile would only last for 3 breaths, which was too short for Lin Sun to retrieve the blade of light and shadow from the seemingly endless abyss of despair. It would be no different from finding a needle in a haystack. Maybe when I reach the immortal level and can support the door of exile for a long time, I can retrieve this treasure. Lin Sun had a feeling that as his cultivation grew, the door of exile was destined to last longer and longer. After a while, Lin Sun put away the formation and floated away. The mountains and rivers that were originally covered by the formation were now in a mess, and there were scenes of collapse and destruction everywhere. This place wasn't far from Fengwu City, so it didn't take long for cultivators to notice it. When the news reached Fengwu City, it caused a sensation. There was a fierce battle between immortals here. Soon, people made their deductions, and all of them gasped. They all began to speculate, but no one could guess what it was. There were too few clues left in the battlefield. Even so, it still attracted a lot of attention. After all, although they didn't know who was fighting here, the immortal aura left in the battlefield couldn't be hidden at all. In the end, even the experts lying in ambush near the star path were alarmed and came to investigate. They all suspected that such a battle was very likely related to Lin Sun, who hadn't appeared for many years. Unfortunately, even these experts from the Immortal Emperor clans couldn't find any clues in the battlefield ruins. The Fengwu School was the closest to this place. When they heard the news, Leng Qingxue and Ye Qingrong also came. Unlike the others, when they saw such a battlefield, a thought came to their minds at the same time. Could this be Lin Sun's doing? If it was really so, didn't it mean that Lin Sun had been hiding in the territory near the Fengwu School for a long time? If their guess was right, it meant that since they entered the Fengwu School, Lin Sun was very likely to have been watching and protecting them in the dark. In the end, Leng Qingxue and Ye Qingrong looked at each other, subtle emotions surging in their hearts. On the day that Luo Yunshan was killed, Lin Sun left Fengwu City as soon as possible. This place would eventually become a place of trouble, and it would attract too much attention. It wasn't suitable for him to hide anymore. The sun rose and the moon set. Time passed quickly. In the 6th year after Lin Sun entered the 5th heaven, the experts lying in ambush near the star path were less than 10%. Lin Sun didn't show up for a long time. It was obvious that he wanted to continue waiting like this. This made many people tired of the meaningless waiting. They couldn't bear the torture and left one after another. Later, the remaining experts near the star path also left. It wasn't because they didn't want to wait any longer. It was because there were no immortal emperors in the battlefield. With their combat power, even if Lin Sun appeared, they were destined to be no match for him. In that case, why should they stay here? It's no different from courting death. As all the experts near the star path left, the news quickly spread to the fifth heaven, causing a great uproar. It's been 6 years. Lin soon actually exhausted the killing tribulation. Many people clicked their tongues and sighed. Thinking back to the past, the many immortal emperor clans were aggressive and united to kill Lin soon in the fifth heaven with all their strength. At that time, who would have thought that Lin soon didn't show up at all and resolved the monstrous killing tribulation? If it were someone else, they would have died thousands of times. Only vicious Lin could escape this tribulation in such a unique way. Those undying emperor clans were given the cold shoulder and returned in low spirits. This is a considerable blow to their reputation. After all, vicious Lin is a single person, yet he managed to render them helpless. If this were to spread out, it wouldn't be good for their reputation. Where do you think vicious Lin is now? Even those immortal emperor clans can't find him. Who in this world can know where he is? All kinds of discussions sounded in different territories of the fifth heaven. Indeed, compared to before, Lin soon didn't cause much bloodshed in the fifth heaven, nor did he act as unscrupulously as before. But just the fact that he was able to survive the alliance of the immortal emperor clans was already shocking and shocking enough. Above a blue sea, Lin soon was lazily lying on a small boat, drifting with the waves. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and his body and mind were empty. Not long ago, he received news from the Domain Star Road, and also knew that the immortal emperor clan experts had all retreated. However, he wasn't in a hurry to act. First, he was worried that it might be a trap. Second, he really wasn't in a hurry. Since leaving Fengwu City, he has been doing 2 things. The first was to completely perfect the profound meaning of the extreme realm of the ancestor realm that the great Tao Furnace scripture lacked. Second, he was pondering about the mysteries of the immortal path. Right now, he is already at the peak of the Zhu Xian Emperor's cultivation. He only needs to cross a threshold to transcend from the Emperor realm and step into the immortal realm. However, this threshold wasn't just a little high. Moreover, Lin Sun has a strong premonition that even if he spends tens of thousands of years, he won't be able to touch the threshold of the immortal realm. Because in order to achieve the immortal path, the most important thing is enlightenment. After extreme accumulation and precipitation, if he wants to break through, he must understand some of the mysteries of the immortal path. Maybe it's a faint feeling, or maybe it's a sudden impulse during cultivation, or maybe it's a thought that flashes through the mind. All of them can become an opportunity to achieve enlightenment. This kind of thing can't be forced. Fine, since I can't understand the mysteries of the immortal path in the fifth heaven, I'll just leave. On this day, Lin Sun, who was lying lazily on the boat, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up, looking towards the sky. Shwa! His figure rose up, his clothes fluttering in the wind. He looked like he was ascending to become an immortal, disappearing in the blink of an eye. This day is the 12th year since Lin Sun entered the eternal true world. On this day, there are only 5 years left until the Origin Sect's ancestral court recruits disciples. P.S. It's Mother's Day. I wish all mothers in the world happiness and good health. Goldfish will continue to write after a meal with Mother. Chapter 2706. The Sixth Heaven. Yingfeng City. In a restaurant, Peng Tianxiang sat alone by the window, drinking alone, looking depressed. Do you think that the ruthless man of the Heart Mountain really has the guts to come to the sixth heaven? A noisy discussion sounded in the distance. I don't know if he dares to come or not. I only know that in the sixth heaven, the One, Heng, He, Luo, Zhu, and other immortal emperor clans have become the laughing stock of the world. Someone whispered. The expressions of many of the people present changed. From the moment Lin Sun appeared in the first heaven, all the immortal emperor clans dispatched their forces, causing a huge commotion in the sixth heaven, attracting everyone's attention. Countless people were speculating when Lin Sun would be killed, and which immortal emperor clans would kill him. However, no one thought that Lin Sun would still be alive. Because the power gathered by the immortal emperor clans was too terrifying, so much so that people couldn't see any hope of survival from Lin Sun. However, no one expected that under this chase, Lin Sun not only miraculously survived, but also killed all the way from the first heaven to the fifth heaven. What's even more incredible is that even though many immortal emperor clans set up an inescapable net, they still couldn't kill Lin Sun in the fifth heaven. On the contrary, the powerhouses of the immortal emperor clans who couldn't find Lin Sun's trace were the first to be defeated after waiting for so many years. This matter has now spread in the sixth heaven, causing a huge uproar. The immortal emperor clans' faces were completely ruined, and they became a laughing stock. If I were Lin Sun, I definitely wouldn't come to the sixth heaven. It's too dangerous. After all, this is the base camp of those immortal emperor clans. They have already said that if Lin Sun dares to appear, they will make sure he dies without a complete corpse. Someone sighed. Everyone can say threatening words, but the point is, how could a character like Lin Sun be afraid of these threats? Didn't they see how he survived all the way here? Anyone who is his enemy, no matter what your identity or status is, will be killed without hesitation. Someone said slowly, looking at Lin Sun with admiration. Everyone, you are wrong. In the fifth heaven, vicious Lin could only hide like a turtle. He didn't dare to show his traces at all. Otherwise, how could he have survived? Based on this, even if he really dares to enter the sixth heaven, he will continue to be a coward. Otherwise, when his identity is exposed, it will be the day of his death. Someone analyzed calmly, and many people agreed with him. The sixth heaven is like a watershed, completely different from the fifth and lower heavens. Just the number of undying emperor clans in this world had reached a shocking 24. In terms of the vastness of the territory and the large number of cultivators, the fifth heaven and the lower heavens are far from comparable. And the undying emperor clans that Lin Sun had offended, such as Wen, Heng, He, Zhu, Lu, there were at least 10 of them. In other words, in the sixth heaven, half of the immortal emperor clans are Lin Sun's enemies. Under such circumstances, even if Lin Sun enters the sixth heaven, how can he dare to show his face in public? Not to mention him, even if it was an immortal existence, they would have to hide like a turtle. Brother Lin, no wonder Miss Yuran treats you so well. Back in the vast 1,000 battle domains, who could have imagined that you could become so famous? Listening to people's discussions, Peng Tianxiang couldn't help but think of the time when he met Lin Sun in the vast 1,000 battle domains. That hateful Yun Luohong forcibly took Miss Yuran away when we were in the 9th heaven gate. Otherwise we wouldn't have parted so quickly. Peng Tianxiang felt depressed again. Back then, Yun Luohong, who was the ancestor of the Juing emperor, appeared and directly took Dugu Yuran away. At that time, Peng Tianxiang didn't feel anything. However, when he returned to the eternal world and planned to use the power of the clan to go to the 7th heaven and continue to chase after Dugu Yuran, he suddenly discovered that even though he is a direct descendant of the Peng family, he can't go there casually. As a result, it is impossible for him to see Dugu Yuran again. Until now, he can only sit here and drink. Suddenly, Peng Tianxiang's gaze inadvertently glanced through the window, and he noticed a familiar figure flashing through the bustling street. However, when he wanted to look carefully, the familiar figure had long since disappeared into the vast sea of people. Could it really be? Peng Tianxiang frowned. Then, he remembered something. He stood up and hurried out of the restaurant. The street was bustling with activity. Living beings from different races gathered together. They all looked strange and varied. It was undoubtedly difficult to find a person in such a situation, but Peng Tianxiang did not care about it. He went straight in the direction where the figure had disappeared. An indescribable excitement surged in his heart. If it's really him, then he's too bold. Peng Tianxiang searched as he moved forward. Peng Tianxiang. All of a sudden, a figure appeared in front of him. Peng Tianxiang stopped moving. He raised his head and saw that the person blocking his path was a man in a red robe who had long gray hair and the face of a teenager. He was tall and stood there casually. However, he was like a natural chasm that gave off an unshakable pressure. Peng Tianxiang's pupils constricted. "Who are you?" This was Wind Response City, a territory under the Azure Heaven State. The Peng family was the overlord of the Azure Heaven State. In other words, the Peng family was the ruler of the Azure Heaven State. As such, even though he was blocked by a stranger, Peng Tianxiang did not panic. "I am Yu Ting. I am here on orders to pass a message to young Master Peng." The man in the red robe smiled. He looked Peng Tianxiang up and down with a scrutinizing gaze. This unbridled scrutinizing gaze made Peng Tianxiang feel uncomfortable. He frowned. "If you have something to say, say it." The man in the red robe smiled disapprovingly. He flipped his palm and a sparkling pearl the size of a pigeon egg appeared. In an instant, Peng Tianxiang's expression changed abruptly, and he seemed as if he'd suffered an extraordinary shock. His eyes turned red as he stared fixedly at the crimson-robed man who called himself Yu Ting, and he said, "How did these spatial spirit pearls fall into your hands?" Spirit pearls. It was a miraculous treasure that could transmit messages across realms. Through a special secret technique, it could transmit a message from one realm to another. In fact, it was no different from sending a letter. However, the spirit pearls could be transmitted between two realms. Such a treasure was extremely valuable. A single one was worth 1,000,000 Grade 1 Eternity Source crystals. Ordinary cultivators would not be willing to buy one. "It seems that these spirit pearls were indeed your handiwork." Yu Ting ignored Peng Tianxiang's anger and smiled. However, his smile was filled with mockery and sarcasm. "I have to say that you are quite infatuated. However, your writing skills are too poor. Your words are filled with unsightly words. It's like the ravings of a lunatic. It's ridiculous and laughable." Fortunately, Miss Yu Ran did not see it. Otherwise, she would have been deeply disgusted. You actually peeped at my spirit pearls?" Peng Tianxiang felt his mind buzz while an indescribable rage surged throughout his body. He seemed to be on the verge of losing control, and his face was livid and savage. This is the street. If you get angry and affect others, then it would be a great crime. Yu Ting suddenly raised his hand and pressed it down on Peng Tianxiang's shoulder. The latter was actually unable to dodge. Moreover, the strength in his body was instantly and firmly restrained, causing him to be unable to move in the slightest. This caused him to be horrified, and he calmed down slightly. However, his expression was still extremely unsightly as he said, "No wonder Yu Ran did not reply to me for so long. So it turns out that she was intercepted by you. Who exactly are you? Why are you targeting me like this?" Yu Ting said with disdain, "If you hadn't been writing such nonsense all these years, do you really think I would pay attention to a toad that overestimates its ability like you?" Peng Tianxiang's face instantly flushed red, and his dignity had suffered extreme trampling and humiliation. He said in a hoarse voice, "What exactly do you want to do?" A frightening cold light arose in Yu Ting's eyes as he stared at Peng Tianxiang and said, "My clan's young master asked me to tell you that a respected figure like young Miss Yu Ran isn't someone trash like you can think about. If you dare to have any thoughts that you shouldn't have in the future, then you'll die a horrible death." His voice revealed undisguised contempt. Peng Tianxiang's expression changed indeterminately. "Yu Ran asked you to come?" Yu Ting laughed with ridicule. "What kind of status does young Miss Yu Ran have? Why would she care about such trivial matters? You just have to remember what I said. Otherwise, the entire Peng clan won't be able to protect your life." As he spoke, the sparkling and resplendent world information spirit pearls were crushed one by one between his fingers, emitting cracking sounds. Peng Tianxiang felt as if his heart was being crushed as he watched this scene. His eyes were bloodshot, and his mind was completely blank. The letters within the spirit pearls were written with all his heart and soul, and they were the sustenance of his feelings for all these years. Perhaps they couldn't be considered to be important to others, but they had a special meaning to him. Yet now they were being destroyed mercilessly. Can't take the blow any more? Ha, what a pitiful and lamentable infatuated child. Yu Ting smiled with a teasing gaze. Peng Tianxiang's eyes were about to split open as he stared fixedly at the shattered spirit pearls. He seemed as if he'd lost his soul, and his eyes gradually dimmed. Even his Tao heart showed signs of collapsing. This was exactly what Yu Ting wanted to see. It was undoubtedly better if he could destroy Chen Shi's heart without killing him. Isn't it very interesting to play like this? Right when Peng Tianxiang's Tao heart was about to collapse, a familiar and indifferent voice resounded. This voice seemed to have a strange magical power that transformed into copious and warm energy that stabilized Peng Tianxiang's Tao heart that was on the verge of collapse. He was stunned at first, and then he suddenly raised his head. In his field of vision, he saw a familiar figure that had unknowingly appeared beside him. P.S. Around the 5th of next week, I'll definitely do my best to post 10 chapters. Chapter 2707. I've corrected a small bug. The magnificent cloud in the previous chapter should be Cloud Veil. The streets were filled with people that flowed in an endless stream. However, no one noticed that a silent battle was taking place in that area. Yu Ting raised his eyes and gazed at the tall figure that appeared abruptly, and he said, "Do you think it's interesting to torture such a weakling?" As he spoke, he started laughing, and his gaze instantly became extremely sharp. "What? You want to join in and give it a try? If you're not afraid of death, then feel free to give it a try." His hand had always been pressed on Peng Tianxiang's shoulder, and his expression was composed and carried a form of restrained conceit. On the other hand, Peng Tianxiang seemed to be extremely excited because he discerned who it was. "Then let's give it a try." The tall figure was naturally Lin Sun. As he spoke, he stretched out a hand and pressed it down towards Yu Ting's shoulder. It was an understatement. Killing intent flashed in the depths of Yu Ting's eyes. He was just about to make a move when he felt his body suddenly stiffen. A shapeless force surged over, and his cultivation was actually suppressed to the point he couldn't exert it at all. He couldn't even move a single finger. His expression changed slightly while his pupils dilated, and he watched helplessly as Lin Sun's hand casually descended on his shoulder. Bang! Instantly, Yu Ting felt as if his body was being suppressed by the hand of the heavens. Even if he possessed the cultivation of the perfection stage ancestor realm, he was like an ant that was pinched at this moment, and it seemed as if Lin Sun could easily crush him to death with a single thought. "You dare talk to me with just this little bit of strength?" Lin Sun's gaze was cold, and it was an attitude of absolute arrogance. He couldn't even be bothered to ridicule Yu Ting. "Who are you?" Yu Ting's expression changed completely. His heart went cold, and he felt extremely terrified. A casual strike had caused him to be unable to resist at all. Such ability wasn't something that just anyone could accomplish. How should we deal with him? Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to spare another glance at Yu Ting, and he turned around to ask Peng Tianxiang. At this moment, Peng Tianxiang had regained his freedom, and he was simply extremely excited in his heart. But he was clearly aware that this wasn't the time to catch up. Leave the city and silence him. Peng Tianxiang took a deep breath, and his gaze became extremely icy cold while his voice revealed deep hatred. If Lin Sun hadn't appeared in time, his Taoist heart would have been destroyed and he would have become a complete waste. If such a thing really happened, it would definitely be more torturous than killing him. Yu Ting's face was ashen, but he didn't panic. He sneered. "My young master is the direct descendant of the Yun family, one of the 4 great East Imperial clans of the 7th Heaven, Yun Muzha. If you kill me, your Peng family will suffer a great calamity. Do you dare?" Peng Tianxiang was stunned and said angrily, Cloud Veil? He seemed to be in disbelief. Arrogance appeared in Yu Ting's eyes. Not bad. So it's him. Peng Tianxiang was in a daze. How could he do this? In the past, I was extremely respectful and admired him. I never showed any disrespect. How could he treat me like this? This truth clearly gave Peng Tianxiang a heavy blow. You can only blame yourself for overestimating your ability. A toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. How could a lowly person like young Miss Yu Ran be someone that a piece of trash like you can associate with? Yu Ting's eyes were full of disdain. Even if he was restrained by Lin Sun, he was still fearless and full of confidence. Obviously, he was sure that with his identity, no one in the sixth heaven would dare to kill him. I just like young Miss Yu Ran. Is that wrong? Peng Tianxiang's eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was filled with madness and resentment. Liking someone you shouldn't like is a big mistake. What's more, if you just love her, no one will care about you. But you don't know your limits. Over the years, you have repeatedly tried to approach Miss Yu Ran with the spirit bead. This is called overestimating yourself. Yu Ting's eyes were cold. Peng Tianxiang hissed, "You are just a henchman of Yun Muzha. What qualifications do you have to say that I am overestimating myself? What qualifications does Yun Muzha have to intervene in these things? Whether I am overestimating myself or not, you have no say at all." Yu Ting sneered as if he was looking at an idiot. Seeing this, Lin Sun, who had been watching coldly, said, "Let's go out of the city." "What are you going to do?" Yu Ting's face changed drastically. He could no longer be as calm as before. "What am I going to do? Of course, I'm going to kill you. Do you think you can still live?" Lin Sun laughed. Yu Ting's eyes widened in disbelief. "Didn't you hear me clearly? I am from the Yun clan, one of the 4 major families of the East Imperial family. I am a powerful warrior of young Master Yun Muzha. You?" Lin Sun interrupted with a smile. "Even if you are sent by God, you can't escape death today. Peng Tianxiang, isn't your Peng family afraid of disaster?" Yu Ting looked at Peng Tianxiang with shock, anger, and panic. Lin Sun's attitude was too domineering, making him afraid in his heart. "What does my business have to do with the Peng family?" Peng Tianxiang's face was indifferent. "Just like you are just a henchman. Even if you die, can Yun Muzha kill his way to the 6th heaven and destroy my Peng family?" Yu Ting couldn't believe his ears. Is this the same poor guy who was humiliated, suppressed, and despised by him just now? Before he could react, he felt a pain in his shoulder, and his body was grabbed by Lin Sun and swept into the distance. He finally realized that something was wrong and was frightened. He wanted to roar and attract the attention of the practitioners on the street. In this way, at least he could cause some movement. But who would have thought that after he opened his mouth, he couldn't make a sound? All of a sudden, Yu Ting's heart trembled as if he had fallen into an ice cave. When he looked at Lin Sun again, his eyes were filled with incomprehensible confusion. Who was he? Why did he dare to do this? Outside the city, in a canyon tens of thousands of miles away, the setting sun was like blood. Bang! Yu Ting was thrown to the ground, his hair disheveled. Lin Sun looked at Peng Tianxiang and said, "Do you want to do it, or should I?" "I'll do it." Peng Tianxiang's face was hideous and full of hatred. He stepped forward with a sword in his hand. Yu Ting screamed in horror, "Do you know the consequences of killing me? Lord Yun Muzha will not let you go, he will." Puff! A sharp light flashed and Yu Ting's head was cut off. His eyes were wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. Peng Tianxiang, as if venting his anger, waved his sword at Yu Ting's body. In a few breaths, there were only pieces of flesh and blood on the ground. He still couldn't vent his hatred. With a wave of his sleeve, a divine flame poured out and burned the flesh and blood into ashes. At this point, Peng Tianxiang put away his sword and stood still. He looked dazed and lost, murmuring, Brother Lin, am I really overconfident? His voice was hoarse and full of confusion. It depends on what you think. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. From the beginning, he had been watching Peng Tianxiang's various performances. Thinking of Peng Tianxiang's infatuation with Dugu Yuran in the Kiliakazam battlefield, he couldn't help sighing in his heart. Practitioners were not without emotions and desires. Since ancient times, there had never been a lack of peerless figures who were obsessed with love and trapped by love. Even great emperors and immortals had times when they were obsessed with love. Lin Sun once heard that there was a Buddha who had achieved the immortal fruit. He fell in love with an ordinary woman unintentionally. In order to stay with the woman and live and die together, he did not hesitate to cut off his immortal Tao and returned to the mortal body. This matter caused a sensation in the world. Many people thought that this Buddha was stupid, that he was burdened by love, defeated by the word love. It was a pity that his undying cultivation was wasted. Some people also thought that even if he wanted to stay with this ordinary woman, he didn't have to cut off his cultivation. He could let this ordinary woman set foot on the path of Tao with his strength. Later on, the Buddha gave the answer. There are thousands of women in the world, each with their own merit. However, she is the only one in my heart. So what if she was an ordinary woman? He just fell in love with her. No matter what Tao or karma, he couldn't compare with her. Compared to him, Peng Tianxiang's infatuation towards Dugu Yuran was understandable. Haha, let's not talk about this. I don't need to use these things to move anyone, and I don't need anyone to understand me. After a long time, Peng Tianxiang shook his head and changed the topic. Brother Lin, when did you enter the sixth heaven? 3 days ago. Lin Sun said casually. Let's go and find a place to talk. Peng Tianxiang readily agreed. In Feng City, the top floor of a restaurant. The table was full of delicious food, immortal wine, and divine treasures. Lin Sun and Peng Tianxiang drank and talked about their experiences and things over the years. Both of them couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Brother Lin, half of the immortal emperors in the sixth heaven hate you to the bone. This means that once your trace is exposed, it will definitely lead to a monstrous disaster. After a long time, Peng Tianxiang said, "Why don't you come with me to the Peng family? At that time, you can change your identity and hide. There won't be any trouble." Lin Sun shook his head and refused. "I came to the sixth heaven because I have other important things to do." Peng Tianxiang said. "Then can I help?" Lin Sun smiled and said, "You'd better not get involved. If I really need your help, I will definitely ask you." Now that he thought about it, he and Peng Tianxiang could be considered to have gotten to know each other through a fight. Now they were already friends who could drink and have fun together. By the way, do you know how to go to the Chaos Demon Sea? Lin Sun asked. Chaos Demon Sea? Peng Tianxiang's pupils shrank. It's the most chaotic place in the sixth heaven, full of strange and terrible disasters. Since ancient times, it has been regarded as the Sea of Sin, where countless evil demons gather. Under normal circumstances, even the immortal emperors in the sixth heaven are reluctant to go near the Chaos Demon Sea, because it's simply a hell. Not only is the environment dangerous, but there are also countless evil demons. Ordinary cultivators have almost no chance of survival if they enter it. In the past years, the immortal emperors in the sixth heaven also united to annihilate all the evil demons in the Chaos Demon Sea, but they failed in the end. Chapter 2708. Besides feeling shocked, Peng Tianxiang seemed to have come to a slight understanding and said, to Brother Lin, hiding in the chaotic Devil Sea isn't a bad choice. At present, more than half of the immortal emperor clans in the sixth heaven regard Lin Sun as an enemy, which means that as long as he walks in the world, once his identity is exposed, he will encounter unpredictable disasters. Although the Chaos Demon Sea is extremely dangerous, it is extremely suitable for Lin Sun to hide. Lin Sun saw at a glance that Peng Tianxiang was overthinking. He smiled and said, I'm just going there to find someone. After talking with Luo Qingxuan in the fifth heaven, he has learned that Master Lu is lurking in the Chaos Demon Sea of the sixth heaven. As long as he finds Master Lu, some of the mysteries of the past can be solved. Peng Tianxiang was surprised. Find someone? Seeing that Lin Sun didn't explain further, he didn't ask any more questions. The entrance to the Chaos Demon Sea is located in the territory of the Bloody Wind Divine Land. Speaking of this, he seemed to think of something. If Brother Lin really plans to go there, I can help you contact someone. With him, you can avoid many dangers on the way to the Chaos Demon Sea. Who? Lin Sun asked. An old guy who goes in and out of the Chaos Demon Sea all year round and has done business with countless evil people. People who know him call him Old Kuan. Peng Tianxiang said. This old guy is unsociable and arrogant, but my Peng family has helped him before. As long as I ask him to take Brother Lin to the Chaos Demon Sea, he should not refuse. Lin Sun nodded. If there is an experienced person to lead the way, it can indeed save a lot of trouble. There's no time to lose, let's go find him now. Peng Tianxiang stopped drinking and got up directly. It seemed that helping Lin Sun gave him a sense of accomplishment. Lin Sun naturally won't refuse. In the sixth heaven, there are a total of 36 divine lands. Every single divine land was vaster and vaster than a large world. The immortal emperor clans distributed in the sixth heaven almost all control the territory of a state. Some top immortal emperor clans even control more than 2 divine lands. For example, the Peng family is the overlord of the Azure Sky Divine Land. 9 Leaves City. One of the cities in the Azure Sky Divine Land. The 9 Leaves Trading Company was the largest trading company in the city. It had a long history, but very few people knew that the boss behind the scenes of the 9 Leaves Trading Company was precisely the Old Kuan that entered and exited the Anarchy Devil Sea all year round to do business. On this day, Peng Tianxiang brought Lin Sun to the 9 Leaves business. After Peng Tianxiang revealed his identity, he was immediately treated as an honored guest. 2 beautiful maids respectfully welcomed him into an elegant and quiet hall. Not long after, the melodious sound of jade ornaments jingling rang out, and then a woman in plain clothes walked into the hall. The woman's hair reached her waist, her figure was excellent, her temperament was cold and elegant, and her appearance was outstanding. However, her expression was a bit cold. As soon as she entered the hall, she said, "My father is not here. Please leave." Peng Tianxiang frowned. "Not here? Where did he go?" The plain-clothed woman said, "How could a daughter like me know where my father went? If there's nothing else, then please leave." This was the second time she had issued an eviction order. Peng Tianxiang looked a little embarrassed, or rather embarrassed. Just as he was about to say something, Lin Sun had already stood up and said, "If that's the case, we won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye." With that, he walked out of the hall. Peng Tianxiang hurriedly chased after him. However, as soon as the 2 of them walked out of the hall, they saw an inconspicuous, skinny old man walking over. "I just heard that the second young master of the Peng family and a friend came to visit, so I immediately came to meet you." The old man smiled warmly. "Old Kuan, weren't you not here?" Peng Tianxiang was surprised. Obviously, this inconspicuous old man was Old Kuan. He was also stunned. "Who said I wasn't here?" The plain-clothed woman walked out of the hall with a cold look in her eyes. "I said so." Old Kuan's lips twitched and he said helplessly, "Wanru, this is the second young master of the Peng family. His father helped me a lot. How can you be so rude?" As he said, he cupped his hands to Lin Sun and Peng Tianxiang and apologized, "Please don't blame me. I didn't mean to deceive you. A few years ago I was seriously injured in a killing. I haven't recovered until now. I'm worried about my health, so I don't want to see guests. Please forgive me." "You're injured?" Peng Tianxiang was surprised. Old Kuan nodded. "Second young master is not an outsider. There's nothing to hide. So, you can't go to the Chaos Demon Sea now? Peng Tianxiang frowned. Old Kuan was a little surprised. He glanced at Lin Sun beside Peng Tianxiang and said, "If I'm right, second young master wants me to take you to the Chaos Demon Sea, right?" Peng Tianxiang nodded. "Yes, this is my best friend Shiryu. He wants to go to the Chaos Demon Sea to find someone, so he took the initiative to ask for your help." Shiryu, of course, was the name of Lin Sun's good friend Shiryu when he pretended to be a teenager. Old Kuan cupped his hands to Lin Sun and said, "Greetings, child Shiryu. If you don't mind, you can call me Old Kuan." Lin Sun cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, senior." Old Kuan quickly waved his hand. "I don't deserve to be called senior, but I hope child can understand. I can't go to the Chaos Demon Sea recently." Just when Lin Sun and Peng Tianxiang were a little disappointed, Old Kuan pointed to the plain-clothed woman and said, "However, if you don't mind, you can go to the Chaos Demon Sea with me." Peng Tianxiang was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Her?" Obviously, he didn't believe the plain-clothed woman's ability. The plain-clothed woman was also stunned and frowned. "Father, the Chaos Demon Sea is a dangerous place. I don't want to take a burden with me." "Burden?" Peng Tianxiang's eyes were a little strange, and he secretly laughed in his heart. If this girl knew that the burden in her eyes was Lin Sun, who was now famous in the world, what would her expression be like? Old Kuan scolded, "Wanru, don't be rude." His appearance was ordinary and his figure was thin, but at this time, there was an oppressive majesty between his eyebrows, which was extremely frightening. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. It was also at this time that he finally dared to believe that Old Kuan was indeed not an ordinary person, since he could go in and out of such a dangerous place like the Chaos Demon Sea all year round. Under the scolding of Old Kuan, the plain-clothed woman called Wanru lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, "Father, I can take him with me, but I have to say in advance that if anything happens along the way, I won't be responsible." After saying that, she turned around and left. This made Peng Tianxiang frown, and he said, "Old Kuan, your daughter is so resistant. What if?" Old Kuan said with a smile, "Second child, as long as Wanru agrees, she will definitely take child Shi to the Chaos Demon Sea dutifully. I know her temper best." Peng Tianxiang said, "That's good." He looked at Lin Sun. "Brother Shi, what do you think? Do you want Wanru to lead the way?" Lin Sun said, "As long as we can reach the Chaos Demon Sea, it doesn't matter who leads the way." Old Kuan instantly smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and he said, "That's good. My 9 Leaves merchant group will dispatch a group led by Wanru to the Ocean of Anarchy 3 days from now. At that time, young Master can just set out with the group." He paused for a moment before reminding, "However, there is something that I must remind young Master. The environment in the chaotic demon sea is extremely vile and treacherous. Moreover, there are many places that we will pass through along the way that are controlled by many ferocious individuals. Young Master must not act on your own. Leave everything to my daughter to handle." Lin Sun nodded in agreement. On the same night, in a hall covered by the power of restriction, there were only Old Kuan and the plain-clothed woman, Wanru. "Father, you also know that our action this time is different from the past. Why do you want that outsider to join us?" Wanru's fair and pretty face was filled with confusion and a trace of anger. "It's just a small favor for the second young master of the Peng family. It won't affect this action." Old Kuan said patiently, "You, on the other hand, must be careful not to neglect young Master Shiryu. I've been moving about in the chaotic demon sea all year round and have seen countless ferocious evil cultivators. Even if I don't have a keen eye, I've seen countless people. In my opinion, young Master Shiryu isn't a simple figure." Wanru said coldly, "Of course. Otherwise, how could he ask the second young master of the Peng family to help him? No, maybe his identity is not ordinary, but I'm not talking about that. Old Kuen's eyes were filled with a deep luster. His aura is restrained to the extreme. Ordinary people can't detect anything special about him, but my intuition tells me that the most easily neglected people are often the most terrifying. Wanru raised her eyebrows and said after a moment of silence, "Forget it. Since I've already agreed to this matter, I won't refuse any more. I won't deliberately make things difficult for him along the way as long as he knows his place and doesn't cause trouble for me." Old Kuen sighed with a smile. "You still don't understand what I mean. I'm saying that if you encounter any trouble along the way, maybe you can ask Child Shiryu for help." Wanru's beautiful and fair oval face was filled with disbelief. "Father, aren't you overestimating this person?" Old Kuen laughed. "No matter what, I hope that I'm not wrong about him. I also hope that he's really not an ordinary person. At least, he can help you at critical times." There was a trace of pity in his eyes when he finished speaking. If he wasn't injured this time, he should have been the one to carry out this action. But now, he could only hand this heavy responsibility to his daughter. He knew that his daughter's talent and foundation, as well as her performance over the years, was enough to complete this action. However, as a father, he couldn't help but worry. Wanru's heart was moved. After a while, she took a deep breath and said with determination in her eyes, "Father, I won't let you down.